Good morning, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? Thank you. It is Tuesday, October 9th. I want to welcome you to our land use meeting for the Board of County Commissioners. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer from our chaplain, Commissioner Stacy White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide this board, our staff, and stakeholders as we make important decisions on planning for better communities this morning. I pray that you'll see to it that we recognize that we're all neighbors, and that although we may have differences of opinion on policies this morning, that we can all come together and remember to band together in a neighborly fashion. Lord, I pray for those in our very own state that might be in the path of this storm that's brewing in the Gulf of Mexico. I just pray that everyone's prepared and that they see to it that lives are kept safe and recognize that property can always be rebuilt or reobtained if necessary. Lord, I pray for our first responders, members of our armed forces, again, particularly as they will be prepared to respond potentially to the aftermath of this storm. I pray that you'll keep them safe, guide them, and deliver them home comfortably and safely each and every day. I ask for all of these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner White. And we have dodged another hurricane. Yes. Hopefully. We'll wait till it gets past us. Okay, Mr. Moretta, do we have changes to the agenda?
Point of personal privilege?
Yes, and Commissioner
Thank you,
Higginbotham,
Madam
you're
Chairman.
recognized.
I just want to take a moment to introduce a friend of our family who has just relocated here from Vancouver, Ellen Miles. If you'd stand up so I can give you another greeting and welcome. Welcome to Florida. You're not used to hurricanes and the humidity, but she was attracted to the Bay Area, one by, I think in part by a young man, and also the opportunities that Tampa Bay provides. So we're glad you're here, and you don't have to say anything or sing other than go Bolts, not the Canucks.
Great to have you here. Thank you, Commissioner Higginbotham. Okay, Mr. Moretta, changes to the agenda?
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Moretta, Development Services Department for the record. Commissioners, all the changes and requests for continuances, remands, and withdrawals are indicated on the agenda. Starting with A1, personal appearance 18-0744. This application has been withdrawn by the applicant. Item A2, personal appearance 18-1154. This application is out of order and being continued to December 11th board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A3, personal appearance 18-1236. This application is out of order being continued to November 14th Board of Commissioners meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A4, personal appearance 18-1300. This application is out of order and being continued to November 14th Board of Commissioners meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A5, personal appearance 18-1302. The applicant has requested a continuance to the November 14th Board of Commissioners meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A6, personal appearance 18-1304. The applicant has requested a continuance to the November 14th Board meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A7, personal appearance 18-1305. This application is out of order being continued to November 14th Board of Commissioners meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A8, personal appearance 18-1310. This application is out of order is being continued to December 11th Board of Commissioners meeting starting at 9 a.m. Item A9, personal appearance 18-1313. This application has been withdrawn by the applicant. Item A10, rezoning 18-0305. This application has been withdrawn by the applicant. Item A11, rezoning 18-0404. The applicant has requested a remand to the November 19th zoning hearing master meeting starting at 6 p.m. Item A12, rezoning 18-0559. Staff has requested a remand to the November 19th zoning hearing master meeting starting at 6 p.m. And item A13, rezoning 18-0944. The applicant has requested a remand to the November 19th zoning hearing master meeting starting at 6 p.m. Commissioners, I would note that items A11, item A11 relates to the backup G2, item A12 relates to the backup G4, and item A13 relate to backup G6. These remands were requested after the date to request them as a matter of right. That concludes the changes to the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve changes to the agenda by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve the changes to the agenda. All in favor say, all in favor say aye. Please record your vote. Another meeting.
Good morning, Madam Chair. May I be heard on item A12?
Motion carried 7-0.
I'd like to be heard on matter A12 briefly as to notice.
Okay, I have to refer to the county attorney.
Commissioner, I believe, wanted to correct as well, we have a version of the agenda that doesn't correctly reflect the intent of the remand in A12 is to take additional testimony regarding the transportation impacts of the project. We had that on a prior version of the agenda, and it doesn't appear that it's made it
Okay,
to the one that at least I have in front of me.
Okay.
So that,
and
for
we can't
clarification-
take public testimony.
It would not be customary to the board's procedures to take any testimony at this time during this
Right.
portion of the agenda.
So if I could have staff talk to this gentleman and try and clear things up.
I'm not providing testimony. I just want a clarification on whether notice
We
has to be
can't-
provided.
We can't allow that. We don't do public testimony on the changes to the agenda. Commissioner White, you recognize?
I would like to ask county attorney's staff or county staff for that matter, if we need a new motion and vote to reflect any of the information that you've just placed into the record.
Commissioners, I don't believe so. I believe that the official agenda and the one online has that direction regarding
Right.
the transportation. I have the wrong.
I agree
version.
with that.
Yeah.
That's settled.
Okay,
What I want to settle
we
is,
just can't, I am sorry.
I just wanted.
I apologize, we cannot allow to have any kind of public comment. Is
And
that correct?
That's correct, and I have offered to meet and speak with Mr. Randolph about his issue after the meeting.
Okay. I think we'll just have to leave it at that. Thank you. Did you announce the vote on the changes? Okay. Okay, and now may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
And if you have a B item on the agenda, your item has been approved. And now those who intend to present testimony, evidence, or otherwise be heard on any matter scheduled for consideration at today's meeting, please stand, raise your right hand so the clerk may swear you in.
Good morning. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you all very much. Mr. Moretta, and now we're ready to move to the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioners. This brings us to item E1 on the agenda. This is a personal appearance 18-1208 located on the east end of Ambleside Boulevard, east of Tanya Ann Drive in the Baum area. This is a large PD approved in 2017, specifically 170619. This is a modification to what is called the Village Node. It's a 5.4 acre parcel. That parcel allows for recreational, commercial, retail commercial uses. That particular pod has a requirement to have streets bound it, and it also has a requirement for gridding. When staff reviewed the request is essentially to remove the bounding of the streets, except for the street that it gains access off of, and to eliminate the gridding. When staff reviewed the request, we felt that in terms of gridding, there really is nothing to grid to. This is a very large parcel. The remainder of the subdivision is not in a gridded pattern pattern. It's developed in a curvy, linear pattern. It really doesn't lend itself to gridding, so it would be almost an anomaly to grid this area out and aside from the practical considerations associated with gridding a 5-acre parcel. The applicant has agreed to providing the building up to the area where they do abut a street and not provide the parking in that area that is associated with this development. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions that we spoke of.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. We are on item E1. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa. Again, this is just a very simple request to rework the road alignment around the amenity center, which is internal to the subdivision. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Thank you very much. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E1? Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to E1? Close the public hearing. Board action. Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham to approve item E1. Sir, Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I just have a question for staff. I just didn't understand what the word bounding means.
Bounding would mean that where the parcel is, all the perimeter would have to be bounded by a street. So if you have a rectangular parcel, what they're proposing is that that rectangular parcel gain access to the road, which is to the west of it, that fronts it. But if this condition were applicable, then they would have to have a road that would actually extend around the entire perimeter of the parcel that would separate it from actually the project boundary and what, if this is approved, what will be additional subdivision to the north and south of it. So what they're proposing is to only be bounded by the street that's to the west of it, and they're proposing to not have parking in front of the building and pull the building up to that street. They're proposing to eliminate the gridding and the bounding because of the parcel is so small and it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the subdivision, which is curvilinear.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Aid on E1.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Item E2.
Item E2 is personal appearance 18-1235. It's located at 16203 North Florida Avenue. This is an approximate 29-acre site. This is an approved plan development that permits several development options in parcels A and B, which this is applicable to. They're asking in the commercial area, which also permits community residential homes, to permit a 9-bed increase. Right now, the conditions permit a maximum of 155 beds. They're also asking to modify the location of the access through the residential area to the west onto North Florida Avenue. They're making some modification in terms of where that access will intersect Florida Avenue, and they're also modifying the layout of the single-family plan to allow additional flexibility in how that road goes to the site, which will be determined at site development. Staff has reviewed this, and we are recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation on item E2. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Hong Mai, 14031 North Del Mary, Tampa 33618, representing the applicant. The whole purpose of that is that we asked for 9-bed, increase on the ALF, and there is a dying need for that because most of them is the memory care, and the need was for the companion. For example, you got a spouse, live in the memory care, the sibling, can come by and, stay maybe, during the weekend. So we asked for additional 9 bed, and then we clean it up, the internal roadway inside. And also, Joe mentioned about align with the residential, zoning on Florida Avenue. With that, I respectfully request your approval, and I'm available if you have any question.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E2?
William Malloy again, 325 South Boulevard. Just very quickly, I represent another property interest in this plan development, and we are wholeheartedly behind this.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of item E2? Anyone speak in opposition? Item E2. Close public hearing. Motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve item E2. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote. Sir,
Motion carried 7-0.
oh, were you coming up to speak on item E2? Oh, okay. Okay, so were you to speak in favor or in opposition?
A couple of questions.
Okay, let's have a motion to reconsider the vote on, okay, motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Please record your vote.
My name is Raymond.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, we will now go back to the public hearing and reopen the public hearing on item E2. And sir, the floor is yours.
My name is Raymond Sheldon Jr. My wife and I own the property immediately adjacent to the south. There's a pond behind our property, which we front on part of it, and there's another pond back in the back of this property that's proposed. One, I'm concerned about flooding, raising the water level or something there. It's pretty high property, and I don't know if I need to address that consideration. Also, the property to the south of us, on the other side of us, on Florida Avenue there, have a bunch of bushes right near our entrance, and it's blind and it's a hazard. We sent a certified letter to the people there, but it's probably a legal exposure for them. But it would be nice, not a request, but it'd be nice if we might be some accommodation for an additional entrance. They could use our entrance if they wanted to with this property on Florida Avenue. That's all I have to say. I have no objection to the
Okay.
other than that.
Great, thank you very much.
Those two considerations.
And I will call the applicant back up to respond to your concerns
Thank you.
and a rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Hong Mai, 14031, Northdale, Mabry. There will be an entrance on Florida Avenue, and because right now non-development, yes, although bush and things like that will be cleaned up. The retention pond or the lake the gentleman talking about, when we submit for the approval, we have to get the county stormwater approved and also SWIFMUD and DEP involved. So you can rest assured that regulation will be upheld too.
Okay, thank you. And if you would just visit with the gentleman before you leave here today, that would be great. And we will close the public hearing, and we are now back to board action. We have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve item E2. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you all. Now on E3.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is item E3, personal appearance 18-1273, located on the north side of U.S. Highway 92, west of Moores Lake Road. This is a plan development originally approved in 2013, which is 130356. Has been through a number of modifications. There's a pretty extensive use list and quite a bit amount of square footage, but essentially what it boils down to is this modification is being used to configure an RV center. The RV center has a couple building proposals that are with no additional entitlements, but what it entails is moving a building to the west, which will entail a larger setback from the eastern property line, and to shift and reduce stormwater and a mitigation area for wetlands on the south of the site. Our staff report has a graphic that indicates that adjustment. The mitigation area and stormwater area is being reduced from 7.97 to 6.5. EPC has reviewed it, has no objections to to that piece, and then the stormwater piece will be further reviewed through our site engineering process. If this is approved, staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. Chris McNeil, McNeil Engineering, 15957 North Florida Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. As laid out, the adjustments to the plan are really shifting the buildings southwesterly and adjustment of the pond. Also, as noted, we've coordinated not only with EPC but Swift Mud for the adjustment of the wetland area, and both have been received well. More specifically on the adjustment of VUA, it's approximately 10 feet further to the west and approximately 60 to the south. The other thing I'd like to mention, in condition 11, it requests a 17.5-foot right-of-way dedication. That has already been done for pockets B and C. I just want to make that a matter of the record, so it's not an additional request of right-of-way in that location.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you for your presentation. We'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E3? Please come forward. Good morning.
Morning. My name's Harry Pierce. I work at 4842 Edmond Court, Dover, Florida, 33527. I live next to the property. I'm not quite sure what they're wanting to do because right now we have a drainage problem on our road that goes down because there's a ditch that runs through the back of their property that's not maintained, and it backs all the water up. They put a fence across there, there's a post in the middle, everything goes down that road, backs up. So I'm not sure if that's going to have a problem with the water problem out there. We've been with the county. There's a concrete culvert down at the end of the street. The trees has pushed the roots up, the concrete up, and now the road's eroding down there. The water's not going out like it should be, and I don't know if this is going to create any more problems. From my understanding, he says it's going to the south, the west, and 60 feet up, which is on the other side of the property, but that ditch runs all the way down through that property. And I'm just not sure if that's going to create a problem or not, because we already have a problem. We've been trying to get the county out there for at least 3 years to try to fix the culvert. We keep saying they got other stuff to do. I understand that, but you know, storm water and it backs up and starts flooding in there and the road's eroding. I consider that's a pretty big problem.
Okay. So are you in opposition or in favor, or do you just have a concern?
Well, I have a concern of where it's going to, you know, what's going to happen to
Okay.
the water and everything in there now. It's, you know, I mean, I don't, if it's going where it is, I really don't have a problem with it, but I do have concerns of the drainage and the water because the road's already eroding down there.
Gotcha. Okay, so what we'll do is after we do the public hearing, finish it in a few minutes, we'll have the applicant come back up and explain, address your concerns.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E3? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E3? Okay, we'll close public hearing. If the applicant would like to come back and in his rebuttal time, address the gentleman's concern.
Yes, ma'am. The gentleman is talking about an issue that's he's describing in the parcel or the subdivision to the east, and that is a north-south road. It's got a cul-de-sac on the north end. It drains into a ditch that runs along the north side of the subdivision, which I probably need to show on the overhead, but this project is not in the same drainage basin. And so there's no improvements proposed in the drainage basin he is.
Okay.
I can show you that on the air.
Okay,
if you'd like.
sure.
Okay.
I'd like to see it.
Thank you. I'm using the same exhibit that you have in your package. This is the subdivision over to the east, and the road heads north-south and terminates down here. The discharge is to a ditch that runs along the north side of this property. This section over here, I know he's referencing and talking about having the county maintain. This section
past this point past this property line here is on DOT property and maintained by the DOT. We've worked extensively with them, and they have cleaned this up and maintained it out to I-4. That's a separate project related to this. This property line ends here, and the drainage follows from let me move this up a little bit, from the road crossing under. It picks up roadway water here. These ponds are hydraulically connected, and they discharge out and around at this north end, and then flows back to this pond and this pond across and through this way. So two totally separate drainage basins, but the concern is noted.
Okay, thank you very much. Excuse me. We do have people here from Public Works. Could you talk to this gentleman, get his address, and let's send a crew out there to investigate what's going on with your culvert. It doesn't sound like anything this project is doing is going to affect your parcel, but we do want to get your concern addressed, and thank you for coming. We will now close the public hearing and need board action. Motion by Commissioner Hagan, motion by Commissioner Higginbotham, second by Commissioner Hagan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Item E3.
Motion carried 7-0.
Next item.
Thank you. Item E4, personal appearance 18-1274, located at 955 Del Webb Boulevard. Commissioners, this is a modification to a plan development, specifically an area entitled Pod 1 on a plan development plan. There is no additional entitlements proposed. The current use of the site is approved for office. It has a site plan that the graphic indicates a 3-building configuration. The applicant is simply proposing to move that distribution of square footage into a 4-building configuration. No other conditions dealing with the access or circulation of golf carts, et cetera, is proposed. It's simply to move those buildings around. Staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Is the applicant here on item E4? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Mark Bentley, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, 33602. I represent the applicant. As Joe indicated, there's no increase in entitlements. Actually, we got two specific when we went around the PD, the modification last time, and pinpointed the location of the buildings. So the buildings are in the same general area. We're just going from 3 buildings to 4 buildings. I guess you could sum it up that way. So if you have any other questions, gladly try and answer them.
I don't see any questions at this time. Thank you for your presentation. We'll open the public hearing on item E4. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E4? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E4? We'll close the public hearing. We have a motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Kemp. Approve item E4. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Commissioner White? Thank you. Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, we're on item E5.
E5 is personal appearance 18-1297, located at 3409 West Kenyon Avenue in Egypt Lake area. Commissioners, this is a very straightforward request to allow vehicular cross access to the west of an existing PD. Existing PD is permitted for, or permissible for 77 townhomes or multifamily. They're proposing to connect to the west. At the time of this plan development, the use pattern on the western property line was not the same as townhomes. It was single family. It has now been rezoned, and they're proposing a cross access to go to the townhome project, which is allowed in the zoning to the west. Staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. We're on item E5. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Ty Maxey of Mazer Consulting, 5471 West Waters, Tampa, Florida. As Mr. Moretta explained, this is very straightforward. These are 2 abutting plan developments that have been approved for townhome development. We're just providing for cross-access so the 2 of them can be developed as a unified site development.
Great, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Don't see any questions. We'll open the public hearing. Item E5, is there anyone here to speak in favor of item E5? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E5? Close public hearing, board action. Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner White to approve item E5. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
E6.
E6 is personal appearance 18-1303, located on 4901 Lowell Road in the greater Carrollwood, Northdale area. The project is a planned development, permits 25 single-family homes at a 6,500 square foot lot product. Commissioners, this request is not related to adding entitlements or reconfiguring any of the design standards. It's specifically related to a right-of-way dedication condition that is being proposed to be removed. The right-of-way that's being proposed to be removed is not listed on any of the corridor preservation plans that the county has. So we are in agreement with removing that condition. However, we're maintaining zoning conditions that require that a substandard road condition be remedied as determined by the staff during site development. Staff is recommending approval with its conditions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mary Highway, representing the applicant and the owner. Mr. Moretta called this one correct. It's a minor modification to only remove a condition that required my clients to dedicate 24.5 feet of property along their frontage. This was a PD that was abandoned back in 2007 after the market crashed. My client's property was not ultimately purchased. It is a 8,000 square foot house on a beautiful estate tract. They now have a contract for sale that fell through because of this right-of-way dedication. So by doing this, we'll allow them to keep their single-family house and keep the electronic gates. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. I don't see any questions. We'll open the public hearing on item E6. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E6? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E6? Seeing none, close public hearing. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve item E6. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
E7.
E7, personal appearance 18-1306, located at 10238 Big Bend Road in Riverview. This request is pretty straightforward. It's proposed to remove any potential limitations to signage on the site. It effectively will render the site to be required to be reviewed in accordance with Land Development Code requirements for signage. And staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation. Is the applicant here on item E7?
Yes, ma'am. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard. Again, just to add a little bit to what Mr. Moretta said, the request today is not to specifically approve a billboard by any means. It's just to kind of tweak a condition that technically restricted it. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay, I don't see any questions at this time. I noticed there's something funny on the board. The item's not up on the board. There we go. We'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to item E7 in favor of? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E7? Close public hearing. Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp and Hagan and Higginbotham. And seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us up to item E8. Actually, items E8, E9, E10, and E11 are all related to CDDs, Community Development Districts. Mr. Brian Grady of our staff will make a brief presentation for each of those items. And I will also draw your attention to item E11. The backup for that item has been provided on the dais. So Brian will make the presentation on the next four items. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services Division. Agenda item E8 is CDD 18-00929. This petition to modify the boundaries of the Belmont Community Development District. The petition has been submitted by the Belmont Real Estate LLC, requesting to modify the boundaries of the Belmont Community Development District by removing approximately 376 acres and adding approximately 0.09 acres. The proposed CDD would encompass 509 acres generally located north of Bullfrog Creek Preserve, south of Simmons Loop Road, east of I-75 and west of US 301. No reviewing agencies objected to the proposed modifications were raised by reviewing agencies. Therefore, staff finds the application meets the requirements of Chapter 190 Florida statutes to establish a community development district and recommends approval. I'm available for any comments, questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I don't see any questions this time. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of item E8? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rachel Greenstein with Belmont and Mahoney, 2240 Bel Air Road, Clearwater, Florida, 7764. We're here today on behalf of this petition. My client is here, as well as our engineer and our district manager representative. We are asking the board to approve our petition to remove a portion of this property and add a small parcel. This petition is in relation to the next agenda item. We are creating a new CDD for a portion of the property that is being removed. So at this time, we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you very much. I don't see any questions. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of item E8? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E8? Close public hearing. Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Higginbotham. Commissioner Higginbotham, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Next item,
The next
E9.
agenda item is agenda item E9, CDD application 18-0030. It's a petition to establish the Belmont 2 Community Development District. This petition has been submitted by the Belmont Real Estate LLC requesting establishment of Belmont 2 Community Development District. The proposed CDD would encompass approximately 357 acres generally located north of Bullfrog Creek Preserve, south of Simmons Loop Road, east of I-75 and west of US 301. No objections were raised by reviewing agencies to this request. Staff finds the application meets the requirements of Chapter 190 Florida statutes to establish a community development district and recommends approval. I'm available for any questions.
I don't see any questions this time. This is public hearing, and we will open that up. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item E9?
Hi, Rachel
morning.
Greenstein again, Feldman and Mahoney. Again, as I just stated, this is related to the application that we just submitted. We're creating a new CDD for a portion of that property and are here to answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I don't see any questions at this time. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of item E9? Anyone to speak in opposition? Close public hearing. Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Kemp to approve item E9. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
The next item is agenda item E10, CDD application 18-1175 of the petition to establish the Creek Preserve Community Development District. The petition is submitted by the Creek Preserve Development LLC to establish the CDD. The proposed CDD would encompass approximately 164 acres, generally located between Westlake Drive and Dalia Street, north of 674. No reviewing agency objected to the proposed establishment of the CDD. Therefore, staff finds the application meets the requirements of Chapter 190 Florida statutes to establish the Community Development District and recommends their approval. I'm available for questions.
Thank you for the presentation on item E10. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak in favor of item E10? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Brian Lamb with Meredith Corporation, authorized agent for the petitioner. Here today to answer any questions that the board might have. I'd like to extend our gratitude to staff for the thorough review and recommendation and report supporting the establishment.
Very good, thank you. No questions at this time, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of item E10? Anyone speak in opposition to item E10? Closed public hearing. Motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner White to approve item E10. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
The next agenda item is the E11 CDD application 18-1195 to establish the Spencer Creek Community Development District. The petition has been submitted by Spencer Creek Development LLC to establish the Community Development District. The proposed CDD would encompass approximately 167 acres generally located between 21st Avenue Southeast and 14th Avenue Southeast and south of 674 and north of Interstate 75. The application has been reviewed by reviewing agencies and no objections were received. Therefore, staff finds the application meets the requirements of Chapter 190 Florida statutes to establish the Community Development District and recommends approval. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. And the applicant is here. Good morning. Again.
Morning again. Brian Lamb, authorized agent for the applicant, have been sworn. Here to answer any questions that the board may have regarding the information review and recommendation as provided.
Don't see any questions at this time. This is public hearing. We will open that up, public hearing. Is there anyone to speak in favor of item E11? Anyone to speak in opposition to item E11? Close public hearing, board action. Motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner Chris to approve item E11. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, we will now go to the oral argument items on the agenda. And okay, I do want to tell everybody there have been 3 items that were remanded just to make sure everybody's aware of that, G2, G4, and G6. So we will be taking up G1, G3, G5, and G7. And if I could get a motion to open for oral argument. Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Kemp. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
And staff?
Thank you, Commissioners. This brings us to item G1 on the agenda. This is rezoning PD 18-0304. This application was remanded from a previous board meeting back to zoning hearing master, and it is before you again. The application has gone through some changes dealing specifically with the unit count and also some adjustments in the buffer area. Primarily, when this was before you last time, there was some questions about numbers and about wetland density transfers and how units would be transferring. There are 2 parcels. The one to the north is generally known as the Rodine parcel, and it's located south of Rodine Road, and the parcel to the south is generally known as the Grove. The acreage for the northern parcel is 177. The acreage for the southern parcel is 178. The numbers in total before you at the last hearing was 710. The numbers in total now have been adjusted down to 639. The numbers for the projects by acreage would be 283 for the Rodine parcel, which is to the north, and 356 to the Grove parcel, which is to the south. Essentially, what's before you is a residential project which is proposing to use the RP2 development standards. Again, there have been some adjustments in the buffer area, acknowledging adjacent land uses and calibrating that buffering for the adjacent land use for compatibility purposes to the extent that it's practical. Staff has recommended approval in review of this application, and we're here if you have any questions. Oral argument's been filed.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Is the applicant here? Yes. Good morning, and you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Vin Marchetti representing Eisenhower Properties, a group. Jeff Hills is here today, as well as Steve Luce from Eisenhower. Also have land planner David Smith is here to talk about the 2 points that were remanded for the case, one being the the buffering that we just discussed by Joe, also the calculation of density. I think Commissioner White had asked for that clarification. We also have here for any questions our traffic engineer Steve Henry, as well as our civil engineer Clark Lowmiller from King Engineering. Staff did explain the nature of the request. I guess I'm on hold.
Mr. Marchetti, have you been sworn in?
Yes.
Thank you.
Outside the door, actually. My hand was up.
I saw him.
The staff did explain the nature of the rezoning request. Again, one parcel being 177 acres in Riverview, the other being 178 acres in Baum. Both properties are in the RP2 land use category with the exception of 3 acres, which is located on the Rodin site. The ZHM first issued a 17-page recommendation of approval on June 7th based upon all evidence presented into the record, including from the Planning Commission staff, who found the rezonings of both parcels to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and also from Development Services, who found, again, the application subject to conditions, which the applicant has agreed to in full, to be consistent and compatible and approvable. Joe just mentioned the transfer of units that we had discussed between the 2 parcels, Rodin to Baum, has now been taken off the table. My client decided after hearing testimony from the last hearing before the VSCC from the Bond Civic Association group that he would take that off the table. There's no longer a transfer between the 2 properties. Let me have David Smith just go through quickly the buffering scenario. I think we're sort of down to that. On the density calculations, Joe mentioned the numbers that are accurate. They're essentially based upon each parcel individually in one application here today. David?
Commissioner Hagan, do you want to reserve your comments after? Okay.
David Smith, 401 East Jackson Street, 33602, planner for Stearns Weaver Miller. I have been sworn. What I put up before you is basically graphics indicating the buffer. This was handed out and discussed at the remand. A question had come up relative to the 250-foot buffer requirement around the boundaries of the property and to an explanation and a re-review of those buffers. As indicated, Mr. Marchetti, the zoning hearing master, staff, and planning commission have all reaffirmed that these are consistent and compatible with the comprehensive plan, the land development code, and supported by staff and the ZHM. But just to quickly go over it, in the Rodin parcel, we are surrounded by Triple Creek, which is an RP2 property at similar densities. We're across a 55-foot wide easement from Tropical Acres. To our north, there is a TV tower facility. Then there's some residential developments that only abut the access road, and then we're abutted by ELAP. The adjustments to the plan for Rodin is we provided a 250-foot buffer buffering the ELAP lands to our east. Other buffers have remained the same because no buffer is required between projects of similar density. Properties are not adjacent if they're across a 50-foot wide or more easement or right-of-way Tropical Acres, but we have provided a 50-foot additional buffer providing 105 foot from this portion of Tropical Acres. No buffer is required through here because that is only an access road accessing the property. On the southern property known as the Grove, we have similar situations. We're surrounded on 2 sides by RP2 development that already provides buffer or is not going to have any development at all. So therefore, we're providing no additional buffer other than what is shown on the plan. We have provided for these non-conforming lots that are across Spencer Lane and also across a very narrow finger of property. It's about 50 foot wide. We provided a 50-foot buffer there. Along the highway frontages, the right-of-way exceeds 50 foot in width. Therefore, under the policies, those properties are not adjacent. Based upon that fact, though, we have provided a 50-foot wide augmented buffer along these highway frontages in order to provide additional screening for the residential properties. Also note that this is a truck route. Also, there was a comment and a request made by Mr. Scoggins for a 250-foot wide buffer be provided against his property. That has been incorporated in the plan. The only other two properties that are abut us is this residential tract developed with one home. We provided an augmented 50-foot wide buffer there. We've had no comments through 2 public hearings from these residents, no objections relative to the buffer being proposed. And then this property from the Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan is a non-residential use. However, we do have a letter from them that's been placed in the file, and they have no objection to the proposed buffering. Based upon the definitions in the code relative to adjacent properties and the ability to have alternative buffering, we request that you approve this as planned. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
Just to conclude, Vin Marchetti again for the record quickly. Based upon our client's removal of the transfer option, which he did again at his own will, in the adjustment of the buffer, the ZHM, Mr. Scarola, then issued a 30-page recommendation of approval with a detailed analysis on each point that the BOCC requested that he consider. The Planning Commission again reviewed the application, found it consistent with the comprehensive plan. Development Services again found the application approvable with conditions, which the applicant agrees to in full. The staff reports before you, including the ZHM recommendation, are very thorough, addressing each and every question addressed, including those questions asked of the Civic Association members who are here today to speak as well as Mr. Scoggins. I would ask that you consider the competent substantial evidence in the record and support the application. Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation? Yes. Thank you very much. And we will now go into the oral argument. It will be limited to parties of record. Has everyone spoken from your side, Mr. Marchetti, on the support? Okay. So we have Michael Fabro, Bill O'Brien, and Jerry Scoggins as parties of record if they will come forward and speak. And you are in opposition, and between the three of you, you will have 10 minutes total. You going to come forward? No, it's okay. Are all three of you going to speak?
Yes, ma'am. At this time,
Okay.
we plan to.
Okay, 10 minutes total.
My name's William F. O'Brien. I live at P.O. Box 203, Balm, Florida. My physical address is 15002 Carlton Lake Road, Wimauma, Florida. Make it clear, I live in Balm, Florida. I've lived in the Balm area all of my life. I represent myself and the citizens of Balm, where I've served over the last 40 years as president of the Civic Association, vice president of the Civic Association, mayor, and other areas of responsibility within my community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my community. At this point, I want to focus on the inconsistency of this zoning petition with the Balm Community Plan. I was one of the Balm citizens on the committee to help draft the community plan. We began the development in early January 2012. We completed submittal, and it was approved by the Board of County Commissions in January of 2013 as a text amendment to the livable communities element of the comprehensive plan. The community worked into collaboration with the county, participating in over 20 workshops to develop and gain approval of the plan that would help to mold the future of our town. The adopted plan consists of our vision, goals, and strategies, and seeks to manage growth while preserving rural and agrarian characteristics and the quality of life established by long-standing residents. In their presentation of the plan, the staff commented that the community authored the vision for how their community will look in the future. Adopting the plan provides Balm with a tool to implement their vision. The vision gives the community directions and motivation to strive to maintain the unique rural lifestyles established by its inventory of agricultural lands and environmental resources and accommodate future low-density residential development. Improved quality of life will be achieved through implementing the strategies. That's a direct quote from your staff. In addition, the staff comments of our plan included, this community plan demonstrates Hillsborough County's commitment to use the community plan vision goals, strategies, and action plan when evaluating and deciding on matters pertaining to the community plan area. This rezoning has numerous inconsistencies with our plan goals and commitments made by Hillsborough County to support these goals. Goal number 1, the community seeks to maintain and preserve the rural and agrarian characteristics, atmosphere, and quality of life established by longstanding community residents, which includes leisurely activity, strong neighborhood ties, faith-based organizations, and rural low-density land use designations. In return, the county committed they will continue to maintain the rural future land use map designations that are compatible with the existing rural character and level of development involved, specifically maintaining the comprehensive plan definition of rural densities in the rural area as 1 unit per 5 acre or less. The county will not designate any further residential RP2 land use categories unless due to split uses on one parcel consistent with the future land use element policies. Commissioners, 100 or hundreds of houses on 40 to 50-foot lots is not consistent with our plan. Goal number 2, BALM encourages Hillsborough County to make necessary improvements to and provide continued maintenance of new and existing infrastructure in order to keep BALM attractive, functional, and safe for visitors and local residents. The county will, these are additional commitments, emphasize the use of livable roadways, guidelines, and comprehensive plan community design component policies for design of all modes of travel within BALM when feasible. So where are these policies applied in this application? Goal number 4, BALM stakeholders support the preservation of existing open spaces and acquisition of new open spaces when open to the public. Commitment from the county. The county will continue to minimize light pollution and pervasive artificial light through the dark sky standards. Commissioners, hundreds of houses built up to 3 stories high with reduced perimeter lot lines will not support this goal. And finally, goal number 6, the community seeks the creation of pedestrian-friendly villages that includes a diverse mix of uses meeting their daily needs. The county commitment. Implement existing future land use element policies calling for countywide rural design guidelines to foster the rural environment, reinforce its character, and distinguish it from the more urban development. So, where are the rural design guidelines applied in this rezoning request? Commissioners, we worked hard and long on the development of our community plan to help establish a path for managed development in our town. You made commitments to support our plan. The rezoning request 180304 is not consistent with our plan, and if approved, will be incompatible with the existing land uses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and there's about 4 minutes, 18 seconds left for the other 2 speakers. And do you want to speak from the Elmo, sir? There is a microphone over there. And have you been sworn in?
Hello? Yes.
Okay, thank you. And could you identify yourself?
My name is Jerry Scoggins. I live at 15024 Baumwaimama Road, as you all know at the last meeting. Can I get this on the screen here?
We'll get somebody to help you.
Mr. Scoggins, before you begin, can you advise me if that was placed into the record at the zoning hearing master hearing?
Excuse me?
Did you present that material at the zoning hearing master hearing?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did present the same material. Okay, how come it's not on the screen? Okay, all right. I wanted to bring up a couple things here. According to the developmental services plan, you're supposed to have a 250-foot buffer around 70% of any subdivision in a rural area. I agree with them that they gave me a 250-foot buffer. But the problem with the buffer is if I look out my backyard when the sun's coming up in the east, you know what I'm going to see? I'm going to see lot lines of 40 foot by 50 foot right behind my house where the sun's supposed to come up in my backyard. Okay, that being said, I'm requesting that the 250-foot buffer be around the host subdivision. What is wrong with that? Because this is a natural area. It's been like that forever. And then we want to come in here and put 0 lot lines or 50-foot lot lines around our properties. That's one thing. Another thing is the road that goes north of my property that ties into 170619. Now, that's the other zoning that is compatible to this subdivision that they want to do. Well, according to the plans, they want to bring a road straight down through between my property on both sides of the road. There's going to be 300 homes on the west side of my property. There's going to be 350 homes on the east side of my property. That right-of-way is only 63 feet wide. Okay? So in order to accommodate the turn lane, just to go into their subdivision, they need to expand that right-of-way to 96 feet. That being said, I feel that the right-of-way in between those properties needs to be purchased because the developer is going to give you a setback and donate the right-of-way to you guys for the expansion of the road. But there's nothing said about the properties in between us. And that's where I rest my case right there. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you very much. And you have one speaker left for 2 minutes.
Thanks.
And if you please identify yourself and
Michael
have you been sworn in.
Fabro, 14423 County Road 672. I'm 1 mile east of this property request,
Have
and
you
yes,
been
I have
sworn?
been sworn
Okay,
in.
good. Thank you.
Yes, I have been sworn. I'm here to represent our association as a business owner down there, as well as the president of their community. Obviously, this gets to reduce, so let's just get to the point. We're not opposed to development in our area as long as it remains consistent with our plan and where we live. We strongly object the manner in which it is trying to be done now. Make no mistake, this PD has nothing to do with those of us that live there. Absolutely nothing. You want residential where you can walk to, that they don't, they have trails. All of that is inside of that community, which has nothing to do with where we live. As far as compatibility, I really do not know how this is even considered to be compatible to BOM. There are no berms, there are no trees, there are no cluster developments anywhere in BOM. If we're just using Hillsborough County as a rule, on 16 August, Commissioner Hagan had found that something in Thonisasassa was incompatible. Is that not in Hillsborough County? So if we're just using a general RP2 and what our comprehensive plan is, which by the way is just a guide, nowhere in there says you must put 2 homes on an acre. Nowhere. So since that's not in there, why are we getting rid of the buffers? We're getting rid of the buffers for the simple reason to put more houses there. That's just greed. You swore me in the talk, but we use greed as an excuse to put extra houses. They say we're going to make it pretty. Where I live, I look out across the sky. You're going to put a 6-foot fence and a 35-foot house that's 29 feet above that. That's my new view. That is, again, not consistent. We would request some guidelines for what considered to be consistent and not. There is plenty of film of these meetings we can go over and make sure that it's been consistent across the board, because there is nothing in BOM that is in this PD.
Thank you very much. And the applicant has 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
Commissioners, David Smith again. Just to point out, comprehensive plan policies have been reviewed by the Planning Commission, reviewed by your staff, and were found to be consistent. A couple things I'd like to point out. The BOM community plan also indicates a couple little important facts. One, it indicates specifically that you don't want to develop suburban densities other than where the future land use plan provides for them. RP2 provides for these densities. We're consistent with the RP2. This is specifically in the community plan under Goal 1. When you come over further in the plan, it talks about village nodes. It says village locations are those areas that meet locational criteria. Preferred locations are at the intersection of Baum Road by Baum near the existing post office, and or at the intersection of Bomboy at County Road 672 and Shelley Lane. I'd like to point out that this property is exactly at that location, 672 Shelley Lane, and these are the places in the Baum Community Plan that they've identified for these village developments. We're consistent with the comprehensive plan policies relative to that. We provide buffers as provided for, given the adjacency of adjacent uses, and we respectfully request that you find us consistent and approvable.
Let me just wrap up. Vin Marchetti on rebuttal here. I guess a couple of items. First, Mr. O'Brien's very passionate, as is Mr. Fabro, about the Baum community, which we don't mind. We work with them actually pretty extensively. However, they're citing two provisions in their Baum community plan. David just pointed out a couple of them that are not consistent with what's before you today. Mr. O'Brien also went well beyond the two items for rebuttal, which was density calculations on the two parcels, I think individuals what Commissioner White talked about, and then the buffers. But I let him do that because out of courtesy to him, I wanted to make sure the board had a purview of all this information. Having said that, RP2 has been in place, and the graphic, please put the graphic back in. The RP2 has been in place since the early 90s. Okay, so you have to understand when the Planning Commission or the Development Services staff started their community plan discussions with BOM, it was under the context of RP2 being in place, not that it's not there. And so their community plan definitely recognizes the fact that it is in place. RP2 is a transition area. And Objective 33 within planned villages in your county comprehensive plan states specifically 33.2, the residential planned category RP2 land use category is intended to implement a two-tiered approach in the application of densities and intensities. The purpose of RP2 land use category is to promote self-sustainable development, the ability to obtain maximum densities and or densities permitted in RP2 land use categories 160 acres or greater, which is the case here, shall be dependent upon the extent to which developments are planned to achieve on-site clustering. That's what RP2 provides for in your comprehensive plan. The zoning hearing master, in his conclusion on page 29, said the proposed project meets the intent of RP2 planned village policies of the comprehensive plan to create a pedestrian-oriented community to complement the low-density development pattern permitted around the RP2 future land use categories not developed in a planned village manner. Overall, the request will result in development that is compatible with the surrounding development pattern. Mr. Scoggins talked about, I'm not sure what he talked about buffers. The last meeting before you asked for 250 feet. We gave him 250 feet. Now he's talking about someone else's property, some other properties across the way. Again, he went well beyond what the intent for this remand was, but I let him speak as well. Mr. Fabro, I think, is aligned obviously with Mr. O'Brien. Respect their opinions. This is RP2 land. This property will be developed as a transition, parcels, if you will, to the otherwise rural area. So that's our case. There's a lot of evidence in the record supporting our request. I'd ask that you support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to a report from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. This case was remanded back to the zoning hearing master by the Board of County Commissioners. Since that time, the dwelling unit transfer has been eliminated. With no transfer of development rights, each parcel has been reviewed individually for density, and the Rodine parcel's maximum dwelling unit count is, as stated, 283 units. The Grove parcel dwelling unit total is 356 units. Staff concurs with the amount of retail designated for each parcel in the Development Services Report. The amenity center slated for the Grove parcel can accommodate retail development. Staff also concurs with the request for neighborhood specialty retail shown on the site plan at Baum Waimama and Baum Boyette Roads. The applicant has also requested a waiver to the 250-foot buffer requirement in certain locations. Staff concurs with the buffer waiver and proposed buffer conditions provided by the Development Services Department. This includes a berm and screening with landscape materials. Staff concurs with locations of the village nodes for both parcels. Based on the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed request consistent with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Zoning Hearing Master, have a report from you.
The zoning hearing master considered the request to rezone 358.3 non-contiguous acres from agricultural rural to planned development within the South County planning sector in the Riverview and Baum planning areas. As a result of the remand, the application has changed. The applicant no longer proposes to transfer densities between the two parcels consistent with Comprehensive Plan Policy 33.2A. The parcel yields are now based on the individual parcel density calculations. The zoning hearing master reviewed the application and found that the unit count requested on the Grove parcel has been reduced by 54 units from the original request. The zoning hearing master concluded that with regard to the buffer requirements, there have been two changes to the original buffer proposals per the remand. First, on the Grove parcel, a 250-foot buffer has been added adjacent to folio 7785.00000 Scoggins property. Second, on the Rodine parcel, a 250-foot buffer has been added to the east boundary adjacent to the county preservation area. The zoning hearing master considered the buffer waiver and found that the applicant has appropriately requested a waiver to the buffer requirements, yielding a network of buffers and screening designed appropriately based on the small groupings of remaining uses that are not part of the surrounding planned village. Accordingly, the zoning hearing master found that the applicant has appropriately justified the requested waivers of buffer. The zoning hearing master considered the entirety of the proposed project, finding that it met the intent of the residential plan to plan village policies of the comprehensive plan to create a pedestrian-oriented community to complement the low-density development pattern permitted around the RP2 future land use categories. Overall, the request would result in development that is compatible with the surrounding development pattern. The zoning hearing master therefore recommended approval.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move to board discussion and action. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, on July 24th, I made a motion to approve based on ZHM and Development Services having recommended approval, and based on the Planning Commission finding it consistent with the comprehensive plan. The board ultimately remanded the item to address buffering and density issues. The applicant did just that. As a result, the applicant has eliminated the density transfer, which has resulted in a reduction of 54 units. They also have two additional 250-foot buffers have been added. One question I have, the first speaker was referencing the fact he believed that this was inconsistent with the community plans. Adam, I'm assuming that staff and the Planning Commission does not concur with that opinion?
Yes, we do not concur. In our review, we found this to be consistent with the BOM community plan, particularly the recognition in there of the RP2 categories that did exist, and these were existing land use categories at that time.
Okay, based on the recommendations of approval and the additional changes, I'm going to move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item G1 from Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. I do have very many concerns about the things that the residents of the BOM area brought forward today. Sometimes you can ask for things that are so extreme and so waivers that are so huge and other land development issues that are so big that when you go to remand and you get some of them changed, you still have quite a package of waivers that have been put forward and things that don't work. I would really like to see this go back to remand again. I think that there were several issues, and I see several waivers within this that I think are things that really should be worked out more. I agree with the BOM community. This, to me, does not seem consistent with the rest of the area. I believe their testimony that's so. It seems like what we've turned this into is just another typical kind of sprawl development, and I think we could do better than that, and I'd like to see us do better than that. Some of the waivers I'm concerned about are number 11 here. The PD approves a waiver to the provision of 4,806 square feet of on-site neighborhood retail, and looking at the off-site as a substitute instead. I think that that's a problem, the number 11. I think the buffering sounds like it's still an issue that maybe needs some more attention. I'm concerned too, as we do so often here, unfortunately, is throw down more and more development on substandard roads. And we keep doing that, and I'm hoping that at our future land use hearings that, you know, we can reconsider how we are developing moving forward in the county. But right here we had before us 19. As Balm My Mama Road may be a substandard collector roadway, the developer will be required to coordinate with Hillsborough County Public Works to determine the improvements that will be required. There's no reason why this board can't figure out what those improvements need to be ahead of time. And we should, I think, stop moving forward with issues like this that really don't work to the betterment of the community and don't make the area better and don't do the kind of development that we need for the future. I was glad to hear about the community plan kinds of things like artificial light in the dark sky. Dark sky standards. That's kind of amazing that the plan is that precise. And I just think that this could be something that could maybe go for some further discussion with this neighborhood. I do believe that they're not here just to oppose development, but really look for compatible development that works in the area that will make the communities better. And I think that that can be achieved. I think that that is something that can be moved forward, but I hope we, I'd like to see this go to remand.
Okay, and Commissioner White, you recognize.
You know, I thought you were going to make a motion to remand it, and I was prepared to second that for the sake of discussion. You know, I do have to say, you know, I'll remind the audience, and particularly the citizens from Balm that are here, that I grew up down in Waimama, Florida. And I know the citizens of Balm very well. I know the area well. I have friends and acquaintances in Balm that I've known for a very, very long time, my entire life, some of them. A lot of people may not know, particularly some at this dais, that you know, I considered running for the county commission back in the 90s. And you know, I would have loved to have been on this board 20, 25 years ago. I think I could have made a big difference in shaping some policy. You know, but seeing as how I didn't become a commissioner until 2014, you know, I was dealt a deck of cards that, you know, it's you know, it's there. It's in the comprehensive plan. It's in the land development code. For the record, if I would have been a commissioner in the 90s, I would not have supported the RP2 land use category. I would have liked to have seen Balm have its large lot rural character protected, but RP2, you know, is embedded in the comprehensive plan at this point. I will remind the citizens that at my urging, this was remanded to look at some of the buffering and particularly the density calculation. And what we have before us is a reduction in density from 710 units total between the two parcels to 639 units. It's a decrease of 71 units, and if I'm doing my quick math correctly, off the top of my head, that's a 10% decrease. I know some of the buffering issues were worked out. So I've got to tell you, I'm not opposed to a remand to take one more look at some of the issues here. But I tell you, given that I've been dealt this hand, that RP2 is embedded in the comprehensive plan, I don't know that we're going to be on sound legal footing ultimately for any kind of a denial, but I'm certainly not opposed to some additional looks, Commissioner Kemp, depending on what it is that you would propose that we take a further look at.
I'll make a substitute.
You haven't been called on yet.
Mhm.
Okay, Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to remand on the issues of the roadway, on the issues of the buffer, on the issues of the commercial, the waiver on commercial conditions. And also I'd like to know, with regards to one of the speakers who brought up the issue of right-of-way that would be needed as part of it to ever make the roadway standard. To bring it up to what we need there. If we do need right-of-way, if that has to be part of it and should be a condition, I think, before moving forward.
Okay, we do have a substitute motion to remand by Commissioner Kemp, which is seconded by
I'll second that.
Commissioner White. So there is a substitute motion, and next in the queue is Commissioner Hagan. You're recognized. And this is, do you want to talk on the remand? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm going to oppose the remand. We remanded this once. We asked them to address buffering and density issues. The applicant did just that. I've been on this board a long time. I don't ever recall a remand coming back and then this board remanding it again. I don't think that's ever happened. Okay? So I think it's bad precedent. I mean, how many bites of the apple are we supposed to give here? Okay? The applicant heard our concerns, they addressed them, and that's not good enough. Even as Commissioner White said, there's no legal basis to deny this, ultimately. So I will strongly oppose the substitute motion.
Okay, and Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Partially to Commissioner Hagan's point, I agree that we cannot continue to just indefinitely kick the can down the road. Commissioner Kemp, I'll support you on this request for a remand. But again, partially to Commissioner Hagan's point, when this comes back, if a remand passes, we've got to have closure here. We've got to bring this in for a landing. So if this passes today for a second remand, I'm prepared to take a vote when it comes back and just have this addressed once and for all. I don't know if we need to officially incorporate this into the motion, but one citizen had expressed some concerns about the potential height of structures. I'm not sure what the developer would intend to build, but I'd be willing to ask if the developer would be willing to talk about issues of height. I know, that I would imagine could possibly be offered as a restriction or concession of some kind, if they're not planning to build to a maximum height that would be allowed anyway.
So that would be in the remand request if it passed.
I wouldn't, at a minimum, I would just like to see the developer just talk with the community about that and see if some concessions can be made.
Commissioner Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My memory is slipping me now, but I think we had a discussion last time from the applicant. Then we did have a discussion of you meeting with the citizens out there after it was remanded the last time.
Vin Marchetti for record. Yes, we've had constant dialogue with Mr. Scoggins, with Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Fabro along the way, and I'll tell you that the items that you're discussing here for potential remand are all addressed either in the codes or in the conditions.
So since the last remand, you had discussions with the citizens out there. to try to work this out, and it obviously didn't work out.
We've worked out what Mrs. Scoggins asked for, and we've worked out the best we can, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Faber. They don't want development, and although they say they do, they don't want development in BOM. It's RP2. That's the fundamental issue they have.
Okay.
Please ask me your questions.
No, sir, you cannot speak. Please, sir, we cannot have any outbursts. Sir, it's your last warning. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I agree that RP2 is fundamentally extremely flawed land use category, and the pending text amendment, it would only make it more terrible and more sprawl. But that's outside of this conversation. I agree with that too. But that doesn't mean that we can't move forward on this and start to look at the issues in this particular, and we can't put it off forever, but I do think there should be some more coming to terms with what is planned out here. I think we did move forward a little bit with this, with the reduction in units and other things, but I do think there's these outstanding issues still of, as I mentioned, the buffering, the neighborhood commercial, and the traffic issue and the roadway issue, I think, is very significant. And we shouldn't be moving forward, waiving those things right now, or leaving them to the future. I think that we need to meet these conditions and look at this ahead of time. So I totally obviously support a remand to look at these issues.
Thank you. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
I just have a question for Mr. Gormley. Adam, do you ever recall a situation where the county commission has remanded an item, it's come back to us, and then we've remanded it a second time?
Commissioner, I can't recall that has occurred previously in my time here.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Very briefly, Madam Chair, I am going to support the motion for a second remand to look at some of these issues, but I don't want to set any false expectations for the citizens here. I don't believe ultimately that we're on sound legal footing to just deny this and tell the applicant that they have to do 5-acre tracts on this site. Okay, but I am willing for this second, to let this second remand go through so that there can be some added discussion between the applicant and the citizens to talk a little bit about the buffering and everything. But again, I was dealt this hand, okay? As you've heard, these policies have been in effect since the 90s. This is a complex legal process. We have to be on sound legal footing to deny a rezoning. I don't believe we're there. So again, I don't want to set any false expectations. I really don't legally believe we're going to be able to tell the developer that he's got to do 5-acre tracts here. But I'll support the motion for a remand for some further discussion.
Okay, thank you. No more board discussion on the remand. There is a substitute motion to remand by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any further discussion?
Commissioner, just to note, this would be November 14th at 6 p.m. would be
November
the
14th
yes,
at
ma'am.
6 p.m.
I'm sorry.
The
November
remand
19th
would be.
at 6 p.m. Yes.
Ms. Lundgren?
November 19th at 6 p.m.
November 19th?
19th.
19th.
Sorry.
Okay.
14th is your land use meeting.
Thank you very
Apologize.
much. Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote on the motion to remand.
Motion failed 3-4. Commissioners Chris Hagan, Higginbotham, and Merman voted no.
Okay. We are now back on the motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham, to approve item G1. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, yes. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Briefly, I'm going to have to vote yes on the item at this point because of the legal issues that I brought up. As you can see, I've supported the motion for a remand. I voted in favor of the remand. It was at my urging that this went back the first time. The density's been reduced by 10%, if my math is correct. There also have been some concessions on the buffering. But again, unfortunately, you know, I've been dealt this hand with respect to what's in the comprehensive plan. You know, legally, you know, I feel like everything here is in order and legally sound.
Okay, thank you. I see no further discussion. With that, please record your vote on item G1.
Motion carried 5 to 2. Commissioners Kemp and Miller voted no.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move to item G3. May I have a motion to open for oral argument? Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Please record your vote. We'll wait for a second and let this clear out before we...
Commissioner Higginbotham. Motion carried 7 to 0.
Okay, I think we can move forward now.
Item G3 is rezoning 18-0544 located at 5303 Pine Street in Seffner Mango area. The existing zoning is AR and ASC1. This is a proposal to rezone to planned development to permit 72 units, 6,000 square foot lot product. Staff has recommended approval with conditions, and oral argument has been filed.
Good morning. You'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Michael Horner, 14502 North Del Mar Highway, representing the owner and the applicants who are with me this morning. They have owned this property and have been the developers of the abutting subdivision directly to the east for over half a century. If I could just recognize Alta Bruce and Mr. Charles Phillips. Thank you. With me this morning also, board members, is the applicant, William Ryan Holmes, Representative Mr. Jeff Thorson. I also have Mr. David Fuchsen of Fuchsen Engineering, if you have any questions. Board members, this has been in the process for a while. I'm going to try to be as abbreviated as possible. This petition stands before you, comes to you, I should say, with unanimous recommendations for approval. It has been found consistent with all applicable goals, policies, and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The zoning hearing master wrote a very extensive supporting recommendation approving this request, and of course your planning staff has recommended approval as well, and we stand before you with all review agency recommendations for approval. We initially filed this case, commissioners, by the way, this is a 19-acre tract at the northeast corner of Old Hillsborough Avenue and Pine Street. It is just south of I-4, south of US 92, directly south of Armwood High School. It is at a major signalized intersection. My clients have proposed several opportunities for development. One started with the RSC9 rezoning, which would have allowed 5,000 square foot lots. We have RSC9 districts in the area with no other restrictions. Those were approved and developed. My client developed a companion subdivision called Kingsway Estates, Caddy Corner, that also is approved for 53 lots in this community. Same style, same home, same elevations, and that was approved and developed and is doing very well. We've worked continuously, board members, with property owners. Every email that I received, we responded to. We have continued this case several times to allow further discussions and further amendments. Staff is recommending approval of this plan, but it comes to you with a recommendation that we reluctantly supported. In that regards, one issue and one issue only, and that is the required access connectivity to the subdivision to the east. That subdivision, as I mentioned, was developed by our clients. There are only 2 streets in that subdivision, Alta Drive and Phillips Drive, named after my clients. In fact, Mr. Phillips still resides on Phillips Drive, just south of Alta Drive. They certainly have a vested interest in how this property develops. The RSC 9 district was later amended to the PD. We tried to restrict access. However, staff indicated that we were not able to do so, and their recommendation would be for the connection of this access to Alta to the east. My client faced a rather precarious position. We knew we wanted staff recommendations for approval. Planning Commission made it very clear that they wanted access connectivity. There are plan policies that support that. We filed this PD plan. It does reflect that access connectivity, and the condition before you reflects that. However, we have gone beyond that, Commissioners. We knew there were other issues affecting this community. We decided to agree to some further restrictions. One is to increase the lot size average minimum, I should say, to 6,000 square feet. We also increased the lot sizes on the perimeter to 7,200 square feet. We also agreed to reduce the lot number from the maximum of 78 to 72, so we are under the 4.0 max density in the Res 4 plan sector. My client also agreed to enhance landscaping, oversized trees, 100% opaque fencing along the perimeter boundaries, site access requirements as well. My client has to bring in water and sewer. My client has to build sidewalks on both Pine Street and Old Hillsborough Avenue. We've agreed to that. We have no objections to that. We were happy to do so. The average price values for these new homes will be around $275,000 up to over 300,000 square feet, $300,000, as well as minimum of 2,000 to 2,250 square feet. We have reached out to this community. We initially promised them under our RSC 9 that we would restrict that access connection to the east. Unfortunately, staff advised us that we can't really restrict that in the RSC 9. If we amended to PD to allow for the other restrictions, that we in fact would have to have a condition allowing for that access connection. Our plans did so. We notified neighbors initially that we would not be having this connection until the PD plan was filed to the county. And they made it very clear that in order to get their support recommendations and findings of consistency, that we would have to have that connectivity. So we knew going back to those neighbors later that we would have some angst and responses, as we did, about why we changed our minds. So today, board members, this plan before you, it's on the overhead, does reflect no access restriction. That is the plan we filed. That is the plan that staff recommended approval on, and that is the staff recommendation before you. However, we have reached out to Ms. Cheryl Stanton, who is a representative of the subdivision to the east, majority of those owners, and she said, we will only be able to accept and support this development if you agree to restrict this to only an emergency access connection and allowing for pedestrian access only. My clients, if so willing by the board, would be receptive to that condition today.
Could you restate that condition just so it's clear to everybody on this board?
Certainly. We would agree to restrict the access to the Alta Drive connection only for emergency access vehicles.
Okay.
This would be gated, this would be secured, but a pedestrian access would be provided.
Okay, thank you.
We believe this is a compromise. Ms. Stanton is a strong advocate for her neighborhood. While we did not always see eye to eye at the beginning, I must tell you, she is most professional. And I thought that our discussions were very productive. And I'm pleased that we can be able to stand up here in unison and support this request. If you are so inclined, and I'm not going to put words in Ms. Stanton's mouth. You'll hear from her directly. But with that, we will close. We think this is a reasonable request. It is compatible. This is in the urban service area. This is in the middle of Res 4. It's not in the edge of Res 4. This is why you don't want to extend the urban service boundaries out. You want us to bring all those improvements into this area at our cost. With that, I'll close. Be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, great, thank you. Right now, Commissioner Hagan, do you want to wait till at the end? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now go to the oral argument, and this is limited to parties of record from the zoning hearing master, and the opposition, there are only people signed up in opposition. So if you'd like to line up over there, it'd be Avon Antognani, Elizabeth Belcher, Herbert Belcher, Sandy Cooper, Steve Cooper, Roy Lumsden, Cheryl Stanton, Dolores Strait, and Louis McQueen. And collectively, you have 10 minutes. So maybe decide among you who, how you're going to divide the time up. Great.
Got
Good
a small
morning.
handout. My name is Cheryl Stanton. I did arrive late. If you could swear me in.
Okay, yes, please, thank you. Is there anyone else that has not been sworn in from your group? Okay, the clerk will swear you in.
All right, could you raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
If there's if there's a handout going around, if you could refrain
we need
from
to make sure this is
looking at that until.
Was this part of the zoning hearing master?
It's part of the notebook I originally submitted at the rezoning hearing.
Okay, let me just check that against the hearing materials, and I'll let the board know if it's appropriate to consider.
Well, it's not taking up our time.
You can proceed with your testimony. It's just that I need to make sure that this is appropriate to distribute to the board.
So you can get started.
So you can get started with reading or providing the same material and testimony that you provided at the zoning hearing master.
So we can put it on the Elmo?
I would just wait to proceed putting anything up until I've had a chance to look at it.
Is your whole testimony based on that document?
It's pictures that were already submitted of the Alta Road connection.
Okay, then let's just wait another minute and let staff review it.
If you could go ahead and proceed with the Elmo. I see there's a number of pictures that were in the record from the zoning hearing master. I'm still going to take a minute. There's a lot of stuff here that you've distributed for handouts, so I'm
not
just going to take a minute.
submitting all the pictures, just the ones of the houses on Alta.
If you'd like to show the pictures that were submitted or shown at the zoning hearing master, then you can proceed to show those on the Elmo as you begin your testimony.
Okay. Did you pass out the stuff, Susan? Oh, so they can't look at it, the handouts? Okay. My name is Cheryl Stanton. I live at 1001 Alta Drive, Seffner, Florida. I represent the homeowners who live on Alta Drive and most of Phillips Drive. We are technically against this request as it currently is presented. However, Michael Horner, certified planner, and Jeffrey Thorson, division president, William Ryan Homes, have offered to make the subdivision a private road maintained by the Homeowners Association. This ensures the Alta Drive connection will not be required and only a knockbox emergency access gate along with the pedestrian access. Although I would have preferred larger lot sizes, we feel that the builder-developer has tried to find some common ground with the neighbors most immediately impacted by the new subdivision. If the Board of County Commissioners will approve this application with the change to waive the Alta Road connection and require an emergency access gate with a knockbox for fire ambulance use and pedestrian access only, we will be in support of this rezoning request. The knockbox emergency access should be on crushed gravel, not an asphalt exit. I would like to add that myself and Roy Lumsden are the two people speaking that live closest to the subject property. The other opposition people are much further. We are asking the county commissioners to approve this rezoning application with a waiver for the Alta Drive connector road, and instead requiring a knockbox emergency gate and pedestrian walkway to be installed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, please, there is a microphone there. And just as you all speak, please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. I am Dolores Strait. I live at 210 North Taylor Road, which is just about as close and probably more amenable, not amenable, but more has something to lose if this project goes in as it, and especially if that road is cut through. I have 3 pictures were exactly the ones that I used for the land use hearing thing. First one is going to show a photograph of, and I'm sorry if it's hard to see, this here is Phillips Road, this here is Alta Drive, and this here is the subject property. What you can't see on this thing is that the subject property is slightly higher in elevation than Alta Drive, Phillips Drive, or Taylor Road. What happens on that is during the rainy season, which we've had no hurricanes this year, but we have had rainy season, the drainage pond that is on that, and that is Alta Drive right there. The drainage pond that was set to make sure that there was no problem has filled up more than one time to the top and getting ready to overflow. This is a shot of it going on the other way, and the poor house here, that's mine. I don't want it flooded. I really, really don't. So just looking at some of the things that they have proposed, that I know they're trying hard and I know development can't be stopped, but when you're looking at things that aren't quite, it's kind of on the, well, let me say this. I really speak in opposition of this project the way it is. I think that that road cutting in at all of Alta Drive is something that the developer has a good heart in, but when the developer leaves and the homes are built, who's going to be responsible for keeping it up the way it was originally proposed? The Seffner Mango Community Plan states, and I quote, "The Seffner community is a multicultural community that values its rural and suburban character. It encourages eco-friendly development," which we're not sure if this is. Seffner Mango emphasizes the safety and protection of residents. That is wonderful. The transportation system, including but not limited to roads, bikeways, and pedestrian facilities within the Seffner Mango area, emphasizes the safety and welfare of the residents. Speaking of which, there is on, they say they're going to put subject walkways in around the subject property, but if there is a pedestrian access on that road, Phillips Drive does not have sidewalks, Alta Drive does not have sidewalks, and Taylor Road, unfortunately, is even a narrower road that does not have sidewalks, and there is no street lighting out in any of those areas. With that in mind, we request that the people requesting the rezoning according to the developer at this project to have Alta Drive, which has served as a dead end, please not to pass through. Also, we have concerns. Not only this past week, we were noticing that some of the other areas out there, when there is, God forbid, another accident in that area, there is just no way to get the traffic around and things like that in that area. We would suggest, I know Mr. Marchetti and those have tried really hard. We ask them to have less density in their project. They said they could not make the needed profits that they would in that area. Not our concern in our area. As I said, I know development has to set, but if the county is going to approve this, they definitely need to approve it that there would be absolutely no access to the east, because the road slants down from the west to the east and constantly floods that area. This last one is just a picture of that area during one of the last flooding projects. Thank you.
I just want to ask you a quick question. So you do not approve of the project with the condition in place for the restriction of Alta Drive? And if you could.
My concern is that, yes, for now, and I'll tell you why. There is a half acre on Alta Drive and Taylor Road that is used for a drainage lot, okay? About 2 months ago, tree fell over. There's a lot of trees that fall over in the old oaks in that area. More than one time have they taken out the electricity and whatever. And unfortunately for you guys, they're on county property. This one fell over on county property. Some nice sheriff came along and moved it out of the way so we'd have access north and south. Waited a couple weeks, nothing was done. The tree is still there, the gate is still down on the drainage lot. I called the county and she said no one had notified them of this. And if we were lucky, at least in 3 or 4 weeks, maybe someone would come out and remove the tree and repair the fence because it's not safe the way it is. No one's shown up. And so that's why I have an honest concern that once the developer who is trying to do best leaves that area, there, you know, and I know he proposes things, you can propose anything you want, a homeowners association or whatever, but once he's gone, who's to police that? Because what happens now in these types of developments is that once somebody is gone, there is no accountability. Thank you.
Well, I think the condition had like a restricted gate in it that you could not go back and forth on, as I understand. But the applicant will clear it up and clarify it when he comes up for his rebuttal. Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Once he is gone, who's going to be the responsible party to maintain it as is?
Well, and I apologize for the tree not being down. We do have some public works people here, and they'll come over and get the address so we can get that tree.
Corner of Taylor and Alta Drive.
Corner of Taylor and Alta Drive. Okay, we will get that taken care of for you. Thank you very much. And then you have 4 minutes left.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Miller, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am, come back. You had I can't find it in here, but you had a picture of the pond.
Yes.
How far is that from your house?
It's right next door. You see, what we were told when we bought the house, and that's been 32 years of paying taxes in this community and voting in this community, what we were told when that original lot was slightly less than half an acre. And because it was, when the original Mr. Phillips subdivided the properties, the minimum lot size you were supposed to have was half an acre, and that was slightly less. Alta Drive goes from west to east. Taylor is north and south. On the corner is the drainage lot. The lot next door is my half acre and my house.
So that particular pond or lot, whatever it is, that was significantly put there for drainage?
Yeah, and it already.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the subdivision area is slightly elevated compared to where that lot is?
Yes, sir.
Was there a gator in that lot? Was there something I saw that looks like a gator?
Don't you wish?
Well, I mean.
No, I have not.
That was something I saw in there, okay. But the problem is that the proposed area that they're talking about building is slightly higher than what you had.
Yes, sir.
Had. And I see this happen in the Progress Village area when they develop out there, when they put the new development in, all of a sudden Progress Village started to flood. So that's going to be an issue, am I correct?
Right, because I know on the subject property they were proposing to have a drainage lot, but it's on the south end of the property on Old Hillsborough, which also has had some flooding problems.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horner, in your rebuttal, would you come back and address that issue for me, please? Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I think he'll be addressing a lot of issues. Thank you. And then you are?
Hi, my name is Roy Lumsden.
Good. Good morning.
I've passed out a duplicate of what I presented at the other hearing. The only exception is my wife was not here. She started a new job. I'm going to just kind of hit this briefly. Within the photographs, I believe, starting on tab 1, lists or shows pictures of the existing homes along Alta Drive. There are 5 residents. The average time of residence in that area is 25 and a half years. The least is 20, the most is 36 and a half. We really established ourselves into this community and into this neighborhood. the question is, if you tie that through, how much traffic are we going to see? Well, based on the information that I have from tab 2, if you'll go to the third page, I believe it is, fourth page, modification will generate an additional 132 average daily trips. This is on an existing neighborhood right up the street. This represents 14 homes. So they approved an addition to that neighborhood. It was reviewed. The modification says it will generate an additional 132 average trips. And what my math says, if you look at that within our neighborhood, if you put in 72 homes, it's going to greatly increase the traffic within our development to a point that is basically unacceptable. Approximately 272 trips per day through our neighborhood, which we historically have never had. More importantly, I want to talk about the surrounding roads. If you again go back to my reference to the recommendation of Land Use Hearing Officer, MM 180561, it talks about Old Hillsborough. The roadway is considered substandard by collector road and therefore must have improvements made to it. Within this new development, specifically the one that we're talking about right now, PD 0544, the one access is on Pine Avenue. If you go to tab 3, you'll see that Old Hillsborough is measured at 20 foot 6 inches wide. So it is substandard and needs to be improved according to the Hillsborough County Land Use Officer. Therefore, Pine Street, which is 24 at 8 inches wide, is also considered substandard and must be improved for the ingress and egress point. If you turn the page, you'll look at Taylor Road, which is where Alta is slated to come out on. It's only 17 foot 8 inches wide. So a full 3 foot narrower than the already substandard roads. If you tie that road through and make it a main feeder, or main connector to what you're calling Taylor Road as a collector, there is no improvements in the plan for Taylor Road. So if you've required them to do improvements to a 20 foot wide road, and yet you're allowing them to use Alta as a connector, why are there no improvements required along Taylor Road and Alta intersection? I and my wife would like to support the existing proposal by the development that we want to select basically the lesser of two evils, which is we don't really want to see a bunch of homes up at the street from us, but we know we can't stop development. However, knowing that we have all lived in this neighborhood for such a long period of time, to be able to use that as a tie road and run that traffic right in front of our house, through our neighborhood, right in front of Charles's house, because all that traffic is going to come through there, I think is unacceptable. And I would appreciate if you would consider approving the lock knock gate, please. Thank you.
Approving the gate? You'd like the gate?
I would prefer the gate over Alta Road being as a feeder tie.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're in favor of the condition?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And we have 11 seconds left. Is there anyone else that would like to just come up and say hello? Yeah. I just want to make sure that we give all the time we can. So that will conclude the oral argument. We will now go to the Planning Commission for their report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission
Oh,
staff.
we have a rebuttal. I'm sorry. The important rebuttal. Oh, my gosh.
Sorry, Tony. Michael Horner again, board members, thank you. I'll be brief. It's a pleasure and a privilege to work with my clients who are willing to reach out to these neighbors, and I really appreciate the neighbors. We've met at libraries, on the phone, and email, and I just can't say enough. Not easy discussions, but at the end it's nice to stand up before you and hold hands. These will be private streets, commissioners, on our side. It will be a gated, restricted access that only the fire department has access to. The pedestrian walkway was a condition of that requirement, and we would agree to that before you today. We do know that we have to have ongoing, continuous, privately maintained restrictions in place. When the developer, Ryan Homes, sells out those lots, that homeowner association is formed, and they become controllers of the master documents and covenants. They were the ones to be ultimately responsible for the enforcement of all those deed restrictions for the maintenance of the roadways and certainly the maintenance and ongoing provisions and maintenance of that restricted gate access. My client, my owner, one of our clients, does live directly adjacent to Alta Drive on Phillips Drive. Mr. Phillips certainly does not have any interest in continuing access once this development is through. He knows the neighbors are concerned about through traffic. Regarding drainage, a lot of these subdivisions have not met the current SWIFT mud restrictions. None of them have, because they've become most restrictive and arduous over the last 4 or 5 years, particularly recently. My client is building a 2.5, 3 acre pond on the south side. This site drains by a substantial contour difference from north to south. All that stormwater is being directed to the south side. And that stormwater currently collects, because it's off-sheet runoff, at the intersection of Pine and 92. Old Hillsborough, excuse me. So we know there's a drainage issue. We know that we have to go through Swift mud. We are redirecting the drainage back internal, then all the way to the south, where our plan reflects that 2.5 acre large pond. With Swift mud approval, drainage calcs provided by Hillsborough County, signed and sealed by a drainage engineer. So we thank them, we thank you. We've worked hard with staff. Mr. Miller, you have a question? I'm sorry.
Are you almost done?
Concludes my presentation. Happy to
Okay,
answer any
Commissioner
questions.
Miller. Commissioner Miller would like to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Repeat again what you said concerning the drainage, and then I want to ask the lady to come up, if you don't mind, ask you a quick question. Go ahead. Repeat it
Tell you
again.
what, I've got our drainage engineer today.
You have a drainage engineer?
Why don't I
Why
just
didn't he come
have...
up before?
That would be
I
great.
introduced him.
Bring him up.
But let me bring him on. Officer David Fuchsen of Fuchsen Engineering. Thank you.
Good.
Good morning.
Morning.
He explained, excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yep.
He explained concerning some new drainage that will happen when the development is built. Could you go into more detail on what that is?
Yes, the concern of the neighbors is that our easternmost side of the property will drain eastward onto Alta and down to Taylor Road into the pond that's already being taxed by the recent heavy rains. There may be a slight amount of our property that drains eastward right now, but with the development, everything's going to be going to the south and will not be going down Alta. We have a pond that's sized for a 100-year storm with no discharge. That's opposed to the standard county criteria, which is a 25-year storm design with a discharge. So we're keeping all our runoff on site up to a 100-year storm, and we will not be sending any water down Alta.
Okay. You know that 100-year storms, we had 26 of them in the last 10 years.
Not based on statistics. There was a lot of rain, but no.
Okay. So how would that affect this lady that lives on the other side? I guess
We will not exacerbate the present situation. It may even improve a little bit, but it's not going to be any worse because of this project.
Could you come to the mic, ma'am? I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. I'm sorry.
Dolores Street.
Yes. Yes, sir. Dolores Street.
Would that satisfy you, what he just said?
I have a hard time, I know he's trying, but I have a hard time saying that they're going to, because we haven't seen any proof of how they're going to redirect water from something that is naturally flowing from west to east going to, and it's an 18 or 19 acre, property, depending upon which page you read on this stuff. But naturally right now, what I showed you was just Alta and Taylor Road.
Okay.
That equal flooding is already down on the base. So if he puts in the pond on the south side and it gathers all that flooding, that's wonderful. Haven't actually seen anything in writing of how they're going to take water that is actually from a property that is slightly higher and make it go south when right now it's going east. I just haven't seen anything like that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Is there any staff?
Do you want to make your comments after we hear from Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Master? Okay. So that concludes the oral argument. We'll now move to Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. The proposed plan development for up to 72 single-family residential lots would allow a use compatible with the surrounding area, given that the subject property is surrounded by residential land uses in all directions. While the residential lots immediately surrounding the subject property to the west and east range in size from approximately 1/2 acre to almost 2 acres, the residential lots to the southwest and northeast of the subject site are similar to proposed lot size minimums of 6,000 square feet. The majority of the smaller lots in the area surrounding the subject property are part of newer residential subdivisions. The larger lots in the vicinity of the subject property represent an older development pattern from a time when the area did not have access to public utilities. Now that services are available to the area, more infill residential development is occurring. While this situation is not unique to the Seffner-Mango area, it is consistent with the Seffner-Mango community plan. The subject property is currently designated Res 4 on the future land use map. With 19.01 acres, a subject property may be considered for up to 76 dwelling units. The proposed density of 72 dwelling units would be less than the maximum density allowed in the category and therefore would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The applicant is requesting a density that is at least 75% of the allowable density of the future land use category and therefore is consistent with policy 1.2 of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan regarding minimum densities in the urban service area. The comprehensive plan addresses compatibility in several of its policies, including policy 1.4 of the future land use element. This policy outlines that compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposed, maintaining the character of the existing development. The proposed planned development would recognize the established zoning pattern in the area as well as being compatible with the approved nearby planned developments. The subject site is located in the urban service area where most new growth should be directed per the comprehensive plan. The subject property is also located, as we said before, in the residential 4 land use category, which is a planned category suitable for low-density residential development. Based on those findings, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed request consistent with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we hear from Zoning Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master considered the request to rezone 19.01 acres from, excuse me, agricultural rural and ASC1 to planned development for the purpose of developing 72 single-family homes. Testimony in opposition was provided at the zoning hearing master hearing and submitted into the record. This testimony was primarily focused on the proposed access to Alta Drive, as well as stormwater and flooding concerns and the incompatibility of smaller lots as compared to the large lot rural homes in the area. As you heard, the Planning Commission found the request to be compatible with the area and consistent with the comprehensive plan. The zoning hearing master recommended that the request be found compatible with the area and consistent with the intent of the Land Development Code and comprehensive plan and recommended approval.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now into board discussion. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Connectivity has been an issue for existing neighborhoods on a number of rezonings through the years. It's stressed, connectivity is stressed in our code, and that's why staff requires it. The first one I can recall is probably 12 years ago on Livingston Road in Lutz. And at the time, I had to recommend changing our notification policy in order for all affected parties to be noticed, which was not the case at the time. In that case, and in many others through the years, the solution has been similar to what is requested today, and that's been to restrict to emergency access only, and I think that certainly applies here. So I'll move approval and restrict the connectivity on Alta Drive, that it's a private road, which has emergency access only with a pedestrian and bicycle gate. And I think Commissioner Merrill's probably going to add on to it, which will only improve the motion, but I'll put that on the floor for now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hagan has made the motion to approve G3, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham. And Commissioner Miller, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask Mr. Gormley to explain to me, to us, what he just explained to me concerning drainage. I think that this will be done during the plan development that could very well alleviate the issue or the concern I have concerning draining. Mr. Gormley, would you please do that?
Certainly. Commissioner, post the zoning stage of a project, we'll go through an engineering review as part of the subdivision, and that review will look at the stormwater that is leaving the site in the pre-development stage. Our technical manual, stormwater technical manual and requirements will require that the design of the stormwater system be done so that the rate of discharge, the cubic feet per second of water leaving the site in the post-development stage is is not greater than the pre-development stage. May improve it, but it can't increase that rate of discharge. That will be looked at as part of the engineering of the site. The engineer did indicate that they're planning on doing a 100-year storm design with no discharge, meaning the pond is going to keep all of the water. That is a higher standard of pond than is the typical that's required, which is designed to 25-year storm. So the project, if approved, when it goes through the subdivision process and the site is engineered, will be required to have a stormwater system that does not create any adverse impact on the adjacent property by increasing the rate of stormwater discharge.
Thank you, Mr. Gormley. And with that, Madam Chair and members, I was going to try to create a condition to be in there, but since Mr. Gormley explained that the plan development will require all of these nuances to alleviate this problem, plus the standard is higher because of a 100-year storm, I'm not going to add a condition at this point. Just let it stay as it is, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who came down to share their concerns about the way development would move forward, and thank you, Commissioner Miller, for following up here on the drainage, flooding issues. We are having and hearing way too much about that, and also just in terms of county follow-up on that. With trees falling in a saturated area, I think there is an indication that there can be an indication that part of that is because of the extreme rainfall and the saturation or even the water table in the area. So I think we do need to be thinking about the county dealing with these, because these have come up too much, and not having these flooding issues dealt with. So that's just in general. But thank you for that, and I'm glad that we look like we're moving in the right direction. I would always feel more comfortable. I don't like the way these approvals go, that we deal with this after we affirm something rather than have it in place ahead of time, but with the condition there to work on that. Secondly, with the pedestrian, the connection, as per usual, everybody doesn't want a bunch of cars going through their neighborhood. And I get that. It is really important that we maintain that connectivity for emergency vehicles and pedestrian and bicycles. So when I heard something about loose gravel, I was a little concerned, because I like to, I don't see how you can't ride your bicycle on loose gravel, but I don't think that that's part of what we'll be doing when we connect it here. But I think it's very important, and in fact, the neighborhood would regret later if there wasn't the pedestrian and bicycle trail kind of connectivity, and also the emergency vehicle.
Okay, thank you very much. I see no other speakers. We have Commissioner Hagan. Do you have any closing? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham to approve item G3. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to open for oral argument on G5. Motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, staff.
Thank you, Commissioners. This brings us to item G5 on the agenda. This is a rezoning proposal for plan development, number 18-0798. It's located at 108 North US Highway 41. It is located at the intersection of Shell Point and US 41 on the southwest corner. Commissioners, this is a request to rezone from the RTC1, which is the Ruskin Town Center District, that was part of the implementation plan for the Ruskin Community Plan. So the applicant is proposing for a plan development away from the RTC, using the plan development as a tool to come up with a customized district. In that proposal, I'll give you some background about the RTC1. The RTC1 district anticipates that this will be a town center. It considers, in the current zoning, in the RTC1 zoning, it considers Shell Point and US 41 as main streets in that implementation zoning that was adopted by the board several years ago. In the PD proposal, the applicant, from a design perspective, doesn't significantly deviate from that. In the proposal, at least in our estimation, what it does is it addresses the existing condition in terms of the building placement, the opacity, the setbacks that are required, and recognizes that in an existing condition, and then also establishes how to deal with that if the use is changed in the future. And we believe that in that element of the proposal that the applicant has done a sufficient job of addressing that. But where we deviate in opinion from the applicant is on the issue of use. What the applicant is proposing in the plan development is a car sales lot. And in that, we feel that since it's the Main Street area, whether it's the RTC1, which does not permit the car sales, or it's in the PD proposal, we feel that that land use is fundamentally inconsistent with what the Main Street and Town Center concept is proposed to deliver. And so we are recommending the denial of the request on that basis.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will now start with the applicant. You will have 10 minutes.
Okay. Before I get started, I have a handout too, and these are Mark Bentley, once again, 401 East Jackson
Can
Street.
you give them to our county attorney and just have her verify for us? And did you want to use the Elmo with those?
Yes, ma'am. I gave the county attorney a heads up as to which ones I'm going to use, so that shouldn't cause any delay.
I think she, just briefly, if you just...
You can proceed, Mr. Bentley, and
Okay.
I'll distribute these.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, if
here
you
we-
want to go to the Elmo, there is a microphone over there,
Okay,
too.
I will shortly. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Our client is seeking a rezoning at the southwest corner of Shell Point and US 41. It's a .52 acre site, and the existing use is auto sales, and it's been in code enforcement for a few years now. What happened with the RTC, unlike some of your overlays, this is not an overlay, it's an actual zoning district. And when the Board of County Commissioners enacted the RTC in November of 2006, it had its a portion of the text, it prohibited certain uses. And one of those was auto sales, and one of those was auto repair. Ultimately, we approached the county because of the pre-existing use of the property, and the county confirmed that you can have auto repair there that doesn't have to comply with some of these RTC design standards, which I'll talk to you about in a second. But auto sales, because it was never a principal use of the property, it was not a permitted use. So what we did is we filed for a plan development, and once you do that, you don't have to comply with any of these design standards. It's kind of like, I'm not suggesting opting out, okay? But you're kind of an island to yourself. So when we approached the county, they said, if you're gonna file a PD, would you mind trying to comply with these RTC design standards to the extent you can? We said, certainly. So we've done everything we can short of demolishing the building and the parking lot. Just to give you a feel for some of the RTC design standards, they require that a building be, for example, not further than 20 feet from a right-of-way or property line. Certain lineal frontage of that building has to be within the 20 feet. Certain percentage has to be glass, and there can be no parking in front of a building. Now you'll see it's kind of interesting, since the RTC was enacted in 2006, there have been absolutely no projects that have come in and complied with the RTC, any redevelopment projects. And to the extent that any project has complied with the RTC, there have been 2 projects that have come in. One was an AutoZone this year, and a couple years ago was a Family Dollar. And even with new development, they needed multiple variances from the RTC to develop their sites. So the bottom line, since 2006, really, in terms of compliance with the RTC, nothing's really happened in terms of redevelopment. So the unrefuted testimony at our hearing was, in the entire 12-year history of the RTC, this would be the most compliant project with respect to the RTC design standards, notwithstanding that as a PD, you're not obligated to do that. Now, with all due respect to Mr. Moreta, if you review the staff reports for either the Planning Commission or Development Services, neither staff objected based on the use, okay? There was no analysis done in terms of compatibility with the surrounding area with respect to the auto sales use. As a matter of fact, there's a restaurant next door, there's a showroom on the other side of Shell Point, the Family Dollar is across the street. They did mention in their reports that pursuant to the RTC, auto sales is not a permitted use, okay? But there was no objection based on incompatibility of the specific auto sales use with the surrounding area. So what I've given you is a portion of the code, and I'm going to paraphrase because I know I don't have much time here, and this is section 317.07, which states that certain uses, if you had an existing lawful use on the effective date of the ordinance, or a lot or structure or characteristic of land, such as lack of parking, building location, landscaping, access, signage, etc., that they were now forever lawful, existing lawful use. There was absolutely no amortization provision that if you change the use, okay, that you have to demolish the building. Say you change from auto sales to an attorney's office or a pawn shop to a realtor's office, okay? If your building didn't meet the RTC standards, that's okay in perpetuity, and that's what that says there. So they took a snapshot in time on US 41 when they enacted this ordinance. And it makes a lot of sense, because the community would have never bought into the RTC if the situation was that you had to demolish a building to comply with RTC if you simply wanted to convert the use. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. But as I mentioned before, something's up with downtown Ruskin, because absolutely nothing's happened with respect to compliance with the RTC in a 12-year period. So my client, to the extent he can, he's trying to do that, but he just can't demolish his building and eliminate the parking lot. And also from our perspective, if it's an auto dealer, you'll see we don't really consider it parking, it's more like display area, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes. So I've also provided you with the uncontested, unrefuted affidavit of the prior owner of the property, Mr. Ted Pieta, who indicated that he ran an auto repair from '86 to 2012 with accessory auto sales. And I've always made this clear to the county, is we're not suggesting that this is a full-blown auto sales facility. It was like a lot of auto repairs you'll see occasionally where they'll sell you know, a sporadic car here or there. They'll repair a car, they put it out for sale, so it might be 3 or 4. And that's all we were suggesting to the county, is that auto sales was there from '86 to 2012, and that's what Mr. Pieta confirms. So some of the confusion happened when the code got amended in 2006, is that a lot of the property owners, because of the magnitude of the area-wide zoning, did not receive direct notice from the county. It was simply published in the Tampa Tribune and something like that. So unless you go through a few pages in your code into the RTC, you wouldn't know that, for example, auto sales or auto repair is prohibited. Now, if we get this approved today, hopefully, is that the auto repair, which is sanctioned in perpetuity, and this auto repair can have cyclone fence,
not meet any of the RTC design standards, absolutely no landscaping, access issues, et cetera, and not look very aesthetically pleasing, but that can stay. So what we're suggesting, if we do get this approved, and you'll see what we've come up with, we think is a very beautiful design, that we would relinquish the right to auto repair. That would be off the table, okay? And you would never see that again. So I just want to show you a couple photos. This is the handout I gave you here, is that although we can't comply with the RTC, what we've agreed to do is put these canopies over the display area here that kind of mimic buildings. Then we've reduced the signage, and enhanced landscaping. The building we've completely retrofitted, et cetera. So it came out to be a pretty nice project. And these are in the record too. These are exhibits 14 and 15 in the record. And here's what I'm telling y'all, commissioners, is here's an auto repair on US 41 that's subject to the RTC. And because it was there on the effective date, this can stay there forever. It's a prohibited use, and this is what it's going to look like. And here's another one down the street. This is a prohibited use. This is a pawn shop, okay? And this is what it looked like in 2006 based on our research, and this is what it looks like now. Okay. And it's not going to comply with the RTC. It never has to, whether or not it's a pawn shop or an attorney's office. So there are two ways to allow auto sales or some use that's prohibited under the RTC. One way is to amend the land development code, and if you do that and allow someone to opt out, they don't have to comply with the RTC design standards. Now, this county commission, since the enactment of the code in 2006, has allowed 4 different property owners to opt out. And that's simply by identifying their property and putting that in the land development code under an existing lawful use. The second process is what we're talking about today and what we're trying to accomplish, and that's through a PD. Note, here again with the PD, you don't have to comply with the RTC, but my client, being a good corporate citizen, he wants to stay there for the long haul. He's doing very well down there. He wants to comply with the RTC, so he's done everything within his power but for the demolition of the building and the parking lot. And I think Joe accurately described what's going on out there. So I think the staff recognizes the good faith effort the client has made to comply with the RTC, even though they don't have any obligation. So to make up for our shortfall, by not demolishing our building, our parking lot, we have incorporated features that meet the spirit and intent of the RTC, and that's in the rendering that you have here. Enhanced landscaping, canopies, signage, eliminated access, et cetera. There's also a Ruskin downtown plan that we completely comply with, and that states encourage commercial development and redevelopment within downtown Ruskin, promote commercial development at a scale and design that reflects the character of the community, promote beautification on 41 in Shell Point, place sidewalks at 41 in Shell Point, which we intend to do, landscaping at 41 in Shell Point. We even offered up, we talked to the association, welcome to Ruskin, but I guess by the time you get to our client's property, you're so far into Ruskin, it really didn't make sense, you know. So that was offered up as well. We also have a letter of support in the record.
Sorry, your time's up. You had 10 minutes.
Can I finish up on rebuttal then?
No, in rebuttal you can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, actually, there are no people in the parties of record signed up to speak, so you could just move. Again, just pause for a second. I know that you all attended the zoning hearing master, but you had to, according to the way the process works up, because we are quasi judicial up here, and at the zoning hearing master, you have to sign up as a party of record. Even though they spoke at the zoning hearing master,
Yes.
but they didn't sign. So do you want to comment further?
There were no requests for oral argument filed by any opponents on this rezoning. I just double checked the electronic file to see if there were any oral argument requests that were missed, and I could not find any. So unfortunately, those who didn't submit oral argument cannot be allowed to be permitted to speak.
Okay, so we cannot allow any further testimony because you're not a part of the record to speak. So I will allow you a few minutes additional time.
Okay.
Because you're not really rebutting
No,
anything, but you do have the 5 minutes available to you. To Commissioner White, what?
You know, my thoughts have to do with the process. I can save it for the end of the meeting.
Right, I understand that, and I think it's just at the zoning hearing master meeting, do they make it clear enough to the residents that they have, they have to do this, sign up as a party of record in order to speak at the actual hearing where we approve or disapprove of the item. Is that clear enough to them?
That announcement is made at the beginning of the zoning hearing master meeting. It's also printed on the agenda for the zoning hearing master meeting.
Do I still have the floor, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm to the point to where, you know, I'm ready to ask staff, and I can bring this as an item to the next land use meeting. I'm to the point to where I think we need to have a staff member at some kind of a station and have an announcement directing citizens to that station at some point during the meeting so that they can stop there and staff can say, okay, you need to do X, Y, Z if you would like to continue to speak at the county commissioners meeting.
You know, we do this at the county commission board meetings now. They have staffs at a table where they sign up to speak, and they stand there and they're available to ask questions. But I do agree that I think something needs to be made clear. Now, I will obviously be their voice today, and I will make my points just because I understand the issue here. But I do think it just probably wasn't clear enough to them.
Commissioners, and Commissioner White's point, that's a great suggestion. We can have a staff person there that's dedicated for that purpose.
I think you really should do that, because if people speak, if they see people speak on items at the meeting, then they notice they don't sign up as parties of record, they're probably going to assume they can speak because they don't know otherwise. So, Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. The policy we have of requiring people to appear at the zoning hearing master, wait till a zoning hearing master decision is out, then notify that they're going to come to the meeting to speak afterwards, once again, does nothing, only dissuades people from engagement, only makes barriers to engagement. Other places do not have that requirement, and nor should we. I will be totally, if I could get support for that, in just eliminating that requirement, that if someone speaks at the zoning hearing master, there is no reason why they shouldn't then be able to address our meeting with the same information, and without a requirement and an additional barrier that not only do they come from Ruskin or wherever else to come to the zoning hearing master to make their points, but then they have to wait till there's a zoning hearing master and then fit within the window of notifying that they're going to speak at this hearing after the zoning master's hearing's decision, and then but within days before this meeting. I think it's an onerous requirement, a requirement that does nothing but dissuade the public from engagement, and a real barrier, and one that I think we need to eliminate here in the future.
We do see it very often. Absolutely. Okay, you can continue.
Thanks again. Okay, there was one opponent who spoke at the hearing for what it's worth. Okay, as I mentioned, someone recently purchased the northwest corner of Shell Point and 41, which is a primary location downtown Ruskin, and they issued a letter of support. They're converting the facility from a showroom to an attorney's office, a emergency medical facility, and they indicated they approached the county and they did not have to comply with the RTC because it was an existing situation in terms of the building and the layout. So in summary, auto sales was permitted use at the property until November 2006. The PD before you complies with the majority of the RTC standards, although not required to comply as a PD. There have been 2 new projects I mentioned, AutoZone and Family Dollar, and even these 2 new projects, just from the ground up, could not comply with the RTC and needed multiple variances. And the intent of the RTC is not to require demolition, but to encourage redevelopment of existing structures, which we cannot comply with the letter of the law with the RTC because of the situation. The project will be the most significant redevelopment project that complies with the RTC in the history of the RTC. And right now, I'd like to turn it over to, and also a couple other points. There was no substantial competent evidence in the record supporting that auto sales is incompatible with the area or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I'd like to turn over to our planner, Ty Maxey, for like a 2 or 3 minute presentation to focus on the RTC design standards. Thank you.
Okay, you have 3.5 minutes.
Go, Ty.
For the record, Ty Maxey, Mazer Consulting, 5471 West Waters, Tampa. I just wanted to reiterate that the proposed project provides improvements to the site, which we implement or will implement to try and bring the project to conformance.
Okay, wait 1 second. He's not signed up in the party of record.
Because he is on the applicant's team and he did speak at the zoning hearing master, he's permitted to proceed.
Because I notice other applicants have their people signed up as party of record.
They do sometimes. It's
and
not.
This whole process needs to be looked at. Okay, continue.
Okay, thank you. So I just want, again, I wanted to reiterate that we've, provided for these canopy structures. One of the conditions in the RTC standards is that your building must be brought forward with a maximum 20-foot setback along the frontages. With an existing situation, the building has already been constructed. It's been there for many, many years. We decided to provide these canopy structures, which essentially provide an alternative. And they not only provide some screening of the vehicle storage or the vehicle inventory on the site, but they also provide a structural element, bringing that closer to the frontage. The applicant currently will be or the applicant's project is, as Mark stated, compliant with the majority of the standards. There are only a few that it's not compliant with. Again, that has to do with the placement of the building, the placement of the parking area, the orientation of the building. We believe that the small motor vehicle sales use is a local business which serves the community of Ruskin and its residents. The scale of the motor vehicle sales business is non-obtrusive and furthers the Ruskin community vision statement, which promotes, and I quote, a downtown that is made up of small businesses as opposed to big box businesses, and quote, preserves its small town character. The enhanced landscaping improvements provided by the PD also further the Ruskin vision statement that, quote, envisions a community extravagantly lavished with trees and lush landscapes of native Florida plants, both existing and new. There are also some other components of the Ruskin Community Vision Statement and the Ruskin Plan's goals and strategies, which include encouraging commercial development and redevelopment within the Ruskin and the town center area, promoting commercial development at a scale and design that reflects the character of the community, promoting beautification and landscaping along US 41 and Shell Point Road, prohibiting pole signs. We are eliminating the existing sign and providing for a ground sign, which is permitted by the RTC standards, and completing sidewalks along Shell Point Road, which will also be a proposal of this project. The PD rezoning request is compatible with the existing and proposed zoning and the development pattern within the area, and we would respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our oral argument part of this item. I will now go to the Planning Commission for their report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. The subject site is approximately 0.52 acres located at the southwest corner of Shell Point Road and US Highway 41. The site is developed with a motor vehicle sales business consisting of approximately 1,800 square foot building and inventory displayed mainly along the frontage of Shell Point Road and US Highway 41. The site is designated Office Commercial 20 on the future land use map with a maximum floor area ratio of 0.75. The surrounding uses in the area include a fast food restaurant to the south, vacant parcels to the west and east, and a real estate office north of the site. The rezoning request is to change the Ruskin Town Center 1 zoning district to a planned development to recognize the existing motor vehicle sales business and allow other RTC 1 permitted uses. It should be noted that the site underwent a zoning verification in 2014, and it was determined by the Development Services Department that the site failed to establish that motor vehicle sales was an existing lawful use at the time of the establishment of the Ruskin Town Center 1 zoning district. Policy 9.2 of the future land use element states that developments must meet or exceed land development regulations. Planning Commission staff believes that there are several major deviations from the Land Development Code that the proposed plan development is failing to adhere to. Development under the Ruskin Town Center 1 district allows for commercial general and residential multifamily conventional uses, with the prohibition of certain uses, motor vehicle sales being one of those that are prohibited. A major component of the Ruskin Town Center 1 is the design of the site. Shell Point Road and U.S. Highway 41 are considered main streets within the Ruskin Town Center. Per the development regulations, development along Main Street should have parking located behind the front facade of a Main Street building. A building's primary orientation shall be toward the street rather than parking areas, and the entrance shall be visible and accessible from the public street. With the inventory of cars parked along the frontage of the Main Street and the building frontage set outside of the design parameters, the request would not meet these standards. Because of parking fronts the side and is a dominant portion of the site, this creates the look of strip development. Objective 23 of the future land use element, as well as the Ruskin Community Plan, discourages strip development. The applicant did attempt to make changes to address the design of the site to further the intent of the RTC-1 regulations. Fences within the RTC-1 area are to be made of masonry or vinyl or cast iron, so the applicant has agreed to remove the chain link fence that is currently on the site. The applicant is also providing additional screening and an awning above the cars, as shown, along Shell Point Road and U.S. Highway 41 to reduce the appearance of the display of cars. Though the applicant is providing increased screening along the frontage of the site, screening the waste storage and mechanical equipment, the proposed design of the site is still too much of a deviation from the required standards and is not meeting the intent of the Ruskin Community Plan. Based upon these findings, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed request inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The zoning hearing master will now hear your report.
The zoning hearing master considered the request to rezone 0.52 acres from Ruskin Town Center 1 zoning to planned development for the purpose of recognizing the existing commercial building and to continue to utilize the building for motor vehicle sales, as well as permitting all uses allowed under the RTC-1 zoning district. According to the applicant's representative, the property was utilized as a motor vehicle repair facility with ancillary vehicle sales from 1986 to 2012. The current property owner purchased the property in December of 2012. In 2014, the property owner requested a zoning interpretation from Hillsborough County regarding the sale of motor vehicles on the property, which was subject to the Ruskin Town Center development regulations. The county determined at that time that while neighborhood serving motor vehicle repair was permitted in the RTC-1 zoning district, motor vehicle sales was prohibited. Further, the county determined that the property owner had not provided adequate evidence that the motor vehicle sales use was an existing lawful use and therefore not permitted. Testimony was provided at the zoning hearing master meeting in opposition, primarily focused on the lack of adherence to the Ruskin Community Plan for both the use of the property and the proposed design. The Planning Commission stated that request significantly deviates from the Ruskin Community Plan, and the Development Services Department also does not support the request, as motor vehicle sales is not a permitted use in the Ruskin Town Center, and the proposed design does not meet key standards established for the Ruskin Town Center in the Land Development Code. Based on the foregoing, the recommendation is for denial of the plan development rezoning request as indicated by the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll make my comments first, and I'll call on you, Commissioner Kemp, if that's okay. I do want to read Ms. Council's what she said in her testifying at the zoning hearing master. She stated that she was speaking on behalf of the Ruskin Community Development Foundation. The rezoning request is inconsistent with the RTC1 element and should be denied. The proposed use is the wrong use in the wrong place. She added that she is also an adjoining property owner. So since she can't testify here today because of our process, I just wanted to make sure her remarks were read into the record. We get put in these positions up here, but I am so close to the Ruskin community. They know I've worked alongside them on their community plan, their, the firehouse center. We're working on a whole new community center to go in down there. I just, this use, I guess, it doesn't promote, or it just goes against the town center concept. And, I'm not saying that your proposal is bad, but it's just at the wrong place. And it's not the right time. I guess I should ask you, Mr. Bentley, did you work with the residents at all when you were planning this?
Mark Bentley, once again, what we had done is we understand Ms. Council is the point person, plus she is the adjoining property owner. So we requested a meeting with Ms. Council and sat down with her and provided her all the information, the rendering, and try to get feedback. And so
Okay.
to that extent, we did, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that, the fact that everybody is in denial for this project, I think it puts us in a really tough place to go against staff, planning commission, zoning hearing master to really move this project forward. I know what my vision is for the Ruskin community. Everybody and their brother is moving down to that area. It is the most sprawled out community I've ever seen that has developed, but it's developing in a really great way. And we, as commissioners, have to keep our eye on that so that we make sure every piece of it goes along with what the citizens have done in building their plans. And I respect the work that you all have done, but I'm absolutely, I'm going to have to pass the gavel. Can I pass it to you?
Yes.
To deny this proposal, item G5. I think it doesn't promote walkability. It does promote the town center concept that they're working so hard towards. And, that's it.
We have a motion to deny by Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioner Kemp. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you for the motion. I do recognize that the applicant went to some lengths to try to make the most palatable of this corner, but I think it's very, very clear. It was a denial by this, it's very rare to get a lineup like this, a denial by the zoning hearing master, not supported by the development services, and inconsistent by the planning commission. In the past, even a failure to establish that motor vehicle sales were part of, what was done there. I realize it was maybe a side thing. My mechanic does the same. And this, I think, would be, the community plans were about vision, about change. The fact that the town center hasn't happened yet, I think with all the development happening around it, it is going to happen. This is a prime time to have it happen, and this would be a real setback.
Actually, I should have said this earlier. They are working with the planning commission as we speak right now in getting that whole process moving forward.
Right,
So
and we
it is
need to
moving
be
forward.
facilitators of that vision, I think, and this is an opportunity to do that. We've been in a recession where this hasn't been realized, and this is a chance we have to move forward. I think it's very clear from all the reviews that this has been through that this isn't really appropriate for us to approve this in any way. So I'm supporting the denial.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Miller, you're recognized.
Mr. Bentley,
Yes, sir.
you're going down in flames, buddy.
Oh.
Is there something else your client can look at with this land and do something completely different with it?
Well, he can sell it for the auto repair with the old cyclone fence and kind of look pretty terrible out there, and that's what's been sanctioned by the county, just another auto repair. He could walk away and leave that.
Commissioner Miller, I have to tell you that I would withdraw my motion to deny and make another motion to remand if he would work with the residents and come back with something that everybody can live with.
I would certainly do that with the understanding that at the end of the day, the use would be auto sales, but if they want to help us with the design,
Well, I'm willing to give you a shot to work with them, and like, I do see where this is headed, and, but I think, I'm happy to do that, but you've got to work with the citizens. You've got to really understand they don't want auto sales on that corner. And if you can't get past that, then we're probably just going to have to proceed with the motion to deny.
Yeah, I understand. I really appreciate your consideration, but, not to belabor this, but because of the way the code was changed, when my client bought it, since no one had direct notice of the rezoning, they were under the impression that selling cars was okay.
Oh, I see.
So that's what happened. And now we are here 4 years later. He employs 20 people and set up a very successful business. And so I'm kind of, we're between a rock and a hard place. So we'd certainly work with the citizens if they had some ideas to weigh in on in terms of design and things like that. But here again, auto sales has to be the use of the property.
So you still have the floor?
You still have the floor, yes, sir.
So you're not going to deviate in any kind of way except auto sales, right?
Well, what we're seeking is auto sales and anything else that's allowed under the RTC zoning district.
So what else is allowed under the RTC?
Just about 30 different things.
Well, why don't you go back and look at 30 different things and come back?
And work with the citizens. Okay,
Well,
I'll remove my motion to deny, and I'll make my motion to remand.
Commissioner Miller still has the floor.
Mr. Bentley, you're raising your hand, you're swearing or something, what is it?
Why don't we do this, okay, here again, my client's not here, he's out of the country, and I hate to, at least if auto sales wasn't going to be sanctioned, he might have the ability to put it to another use. So the remand, why don't we do that then?
I think you need to get a remand, even though your client's out of the country, and if we kill this, he's going to come back and be PO'd. So
Was I going down in flames?
Yeah, because you went down in flames.
Right.
So I'm going to.
I'll do my motion to remand.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to remand now. The previous motion was withdrawn. We have a motion to remand by Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Staff, is a motion to remand the proper motion? Is that in order?
Yes, that's in order. The date is November 19th at 6 p.m.
Fantastic. The date and time's been noted for the record. Okay, seeing no discussion on that motion to remand, please record your votes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thanks again. Take care, y'all.
Okay, I'll look forward to the 30 other uses. Okay, now I need a motion to open for oral argument on G7.
Second.
Yeah, motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner White. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, and with that, we will go to staff.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the final item on the agenda. This is a rezoning to a standard district, 18-1066. It's located 330 feet south of the intersection of South Taylor Road and Old Hillsborough. The current comp plan category is Res 4. The existing zoning is AR, which permits a minimum 5-acre lot per unit. The request is to rezone to RSC 3, which permits 3 units per acre. The parcel size is 4.8. It is in the urban service area. Staff reviewed this and felt that it was consistent, compatible with the surrounding and emerging development pattern, and we are recommending approval. Again, this is a standard district, and there are no conditions attached, and oral argument's been filed on this one.
Okay, thank you very much, and we will start that oral argument with the applicant. If you'd like to come forward, you have 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Vanderloop, address 202 South Taylor Road, Seffner, Florida. It's real simple. We're just requesting a rezone from AR to RSC3. There's an existing structure of roughly 1,949 heated square feet with a 2-car garage, detached 2-car garage, and another detached 500 square foot workshop with 2 wells on a septic tank. The immediate plan right now is just to do a simply certified parcel split, give an easement. The home will be on 1.2 acres. The back parcel will be 3.5 acres with an easement. It's pretty simple. That's what we're.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are, of course, limited to parties of record. 5 people have signed up. Evan Antonioni, Sandy Cooper, Steve Cooper, Dolores Strait, and Louis McQuain. Are any of them here? Good. And come forward if you would just identify yourself, and you have been sworn in.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I am Sandy Cooper. I live at 206 South Taylor Road. First of all, I would love to commend you. I do not know how y'all sit here all day long listening to the same thing over and over. Really, I do commend you. My only arguments are I'm on a well and septic too. This gentleman lives right next door to me, and whatever he builds is going to drain into my property. How is that going to affect my water? How is it going to affect my land? I've had trees uproot because of the saturation in the area, all the overgrowth that is going on with the other parcels that y'all have discussed and approved. That's affecting the traffic, and it's also affecting the value of my property, my quality of life. How is that going to affect me getting out of my driveway, me sitting on my patio enjoying, the outside, looking at the rescue horses behind me? If he wants to build 2 other houses, that's fine. Why does he have to zone it in RSC3 to where it's 3 houses per acre? All I'm asking is limitations. Let it be consistent with the other property that is around him. I personally am on 2.5 acres, 1 piece of property. And that is what we moved there to be in, to enjoy that quietness, that peacefulness, not to hear the building up of all the buildings going, the pollution in the air, the traffic in the neighborhood. Like I said, let him build, but please just restrict it. And that's all I need to say. I do have items that I have presented at the land use hearing meeting. I don't know if you need to have more copies of them.
Okay, we'll have the county attorney check them to make sure that they were read into the record at the zoning hearing master.
Okay. Also, I have a letter of proxy for my husband, for Josie Valadares to speak for him.
Yes, and just if I may, Mr. Cooper, Ms. Cooper's husband, is unable to attend the meeting. They reached out to me to let me know, and so they'd be submitting a letter from him that would allow Ms. Valadares to speak as his proxy. This is something that's been done before.
Sure.
Ms. Valadares is a party of record who spoke at the ZHM.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. And just identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Josefina Valadares. I live at 8111 Brenniger Circle in New Tampa. I did speak at the land use hearing, and I presented that map with respect to traffic. And if I may just speak to the process for just 1 second. I signed up at the land use hearing meeting. I was here when this particular parcel was then postponed to this meeting. And somewhere along the line, my registration to sign up and speak here again today was lost. Ms. Lundgren was very nice to call me and tell me that I would not be able to speak on their behalf, but somehow we worked around that. So I'd like to thank her for, finding other methods for us to be able to, for me to be able to speak.
Good.
And I thank you. I'm speaking primarily for traffic in the area and quality of life. This is a map that I presented at the land use hearing, and if you can tell, Mrs. Cooper and Mr. Cooper live on this property right here. The gentleman who is requesting the rezoning is right here. This property right here is being proposed to be rezoned so that they can get another 30 homes on it. The Pine that you approved, the development that you just recently approved in this meeting, I believe it was item G3, is right here, so another 72 homes. And if you can tell, all of this development that has now been recently done and permitted in this area, which was primarily agricultural, 5-acre homes, 2.5-acre homes, has recently been developed without any criteria for upgrading substandard roads and traffic. So as you can imagine, if this property right here that you just approved is going to have 150-something additional trips every day, and this property is going to propose probably another 100 trips a day for traffic. And now we're asking for this home to have the possibility of another 15 homes that are going to generate 50, 70 trips a day. We're traveling on roads that have been essentially failed roads for years. If you look at the MPO and the traffic studies that have been done in 2006, old Hillsborough Road right here was a failed road in 2006. It's still a failed road. Well, it doesn't appear as a failed road because apparently somewhere along the line the criteria was changed. It's a substandard road now. But still the traffic, we keep inserting traffic and additional traffic studies. And how is that impacting the quality of life for those who are existing in this neighborhood? How many more noise, value, and everything else that is being impacted to the surrounding property owners? Okay, when you change the sheet flow of the water, the storm water that drains across this area, you're affecting that, and nobody's doing anything to address stormwater collection for the rest of the neighbors. Only what's happening on the individual developed properties. We get affected by all of that. How is my well going to be refilled? Right? We're now reducing the area of impervious area. We're increasing the impervious area and reducing the pervious area. So that's really being affected here. And just the other day, there was Hillsborough is up here, and there was an accident on Hillsborough.
Ms. Valadares,
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know that everything that happened after the zoning hearing master meeting is not something that you can speak about. So if there is an accident that happened a few days ago, that happened after the zoning hearing master meeting, so
But
it can't
does
be.
affect traffic though, right? Which is what I'm speaking to?
Well, we're limited based on the board's rules to considering the zoning hearing master record.
Okay.
So if you could just be sure to speak to the topics and the contents of the zoning hearing master record, rather than anything that's happened recently.
One of the other things that we're looking at is, that was mentioned at the zoning hearing, okay, that's South Taylor Road is a road that is only 17 foot 6 inches wide. If you were to widen that road, you'd have to first decide what you're going to do with a cemetery that's down the way. So that road, even though the Metropolitan Commission and the comprehensive plan shows that you can develop these properties with a much higher homeowner count, okay, property count, it doesn't take into effect. Nobody here says, how is the quality of life going to be impacted? And the comprehensive plan does say, we need to protect the quality of life of those existing in that community. And nowhere here was and everything that I learned now or in the Land Use Commission, nobody speaks to that. How the quality of life is being impacted by traffic, by enormous times. What used to take me 5 minutes to go down to the Walmart down the street may take me now 30 minutes to make a small trip. And I want you all to take that into consideration. Now, we're not necessarily opposed to development, okay? But we have to do it in a time frame, okay, that incorporates the infrastructure, stormwater, sewer, expanding the roads that handle the traffic. We can't just develop a whole bunch of communities and not have, where are they going to go? How are they going to go? Hillsborough, right now, Hillsborough, as you go past 579, okay, towards the connection with I-4, is a failed road in the 2016 traffic study. There's no way, nobody's saying how is that going to be widened, how is that going to be fixed, how is that not going to be a traffic problem from now until the end of time, because the 2050 plan doesn't even show it being developed or fixed. So these are the kind of things that we're concerned because we're living there. No sidewalks, okay? Where's the buses leave off the kids? In the middle of the road, where the traffic is. You know, with respect to property values as well. Traffic impacts property values. So all of that, you know, nobody's going to want to buy in an area, okay, where it's going to take them 50 minutes to be able to get out of the area that they live in just to get to a major artery. So we would just like for you all to keep all of these things in mind when you make your decision, not only just to let him, let this property owner increase the amount of homes, but also what's going to come with that increase. And I thank you for your time for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much for your time, for coming down here. And now we allow 5 minutes for the applicant to offer a rebuttal.
Thank you, ma'am. I understand their concerns and their points. As she mentioned, there's a property right behind my parcel that is currently zoned PD, and it's set for 16 homes. I believe they're going for 30. And then the one on Pine Street that was just approved this morning. And so from an economic standpoint, I bought this piece of property to potentially build a long-term residence for my family, my 2 children, my child on the way. And one of the main reasons that we didn't even identify it as a development opportunity was because the road, if you put more than 10 homes on that road, the county would then make you require to widen the road. And the other main reasoning for just the simple certified parcel split was because the sewer is 430 linear feet away. And so in order to maintain an economic stance of holding the land for a long-term position for development to actually come in, I would not support a restriction. It'd be like restricting a 401k or the gold standard or other real estate. As development comes into this area and pushes the urban services down Taylor Road and the road is widened in 15, 20 years, the property will be worth more. But if it's restricted, then the value is simply restricting an asset. That makes no sense from a long-term position. So all we're looking to do right now is to break off the home into a 1.2 acre parcel and have a 3.5 acre parcel in the back that we can build a single family home on. But for future purpose, obviously we couldn't support a restriction. I don't think there's even a standard in our county that would support that. With RZ-STD across the street, the planned development right behind, and all the development motion that's happening in our county and our region with the population increase. So for me, as I respect the neighbors, the county wanted us to push for R4 because they said we could get that. We had to meet minimum density levels, and so I wanted to make sure that we respected the neighbors. And so anything that would go on here with RZ3 would be a 75-foot minimum by about 200-foot depth. So that's a very large parcel as it's being developed. And the market can't handle a house on that large of a parcel without losing a significant value of cash flow. So in the economic stance today, what we're doing is more like a long hold position rather than an instant development position. But it's right now the focus is just those 2 parcels and potentially building a long-term residence for my family. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And that does conclude the oral argument. We will now have the report from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. The applicant is proposing a rezoning from agricultural rural to residential single-family conventional 3. The subject property is in the urban service area, and the development pattern is predominantly single-family uses with lot sizes in the area ranging from half an acre to over 2 acres in size. The immediate area is zoned ASC1, AS1, RSC2, RSC3, and PD, so you do have a variety of residential densities. In RSC3, Euclidean zoning would meet the 75 minimum density requirement of Policy 1.2, as the applicant's lot split would still permit the development of 3 lots. The proposed rezoning would be compatible with the development pattern in the vicinity and should not have any adverse impacts on the surrounding area. The proposed rezoning would be consistent with the Res 4 future land use designation and would maintain the character of the existing development consistent with future land use element policies 1.4 and 16.3. Based on those findings, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed request consistent with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from the zoning hearing master report.
The zoning hearing master considered the rezoning proposed to the RSC3 zoning district. The property is currently 4.83 acres in size and zoned AR and designated Res 4 by the comprehensive plan. The adjacent zoning districts surrounding the property are AS1, RSC2, RSC3, and planned development. The zoning hearing master found that the request for RSC3 zoning results in less density than permitted by the Res 4 future land use designation. The maximum number of lots that would be allowable under the RSC3 zoning district is 14, while the maximum number of lots permitted under the residential 4 land use category is 19. The zoning hearing master found that this area is transitioning to smaller lots as evidenced by the existing zoning districts in the area, which include RSC2, RSC3, and planned development for lots consistent with the Res 4 land use category. The zoning hearing master therefore found that the proposed rezoning to RSC3 is consistent with the surrounding area, as well as the land development code and comprehensive plan, and recommended approval.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now be into board discussion and action. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham to approve item G7. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
That concludes our
Mr.
agenda.
Moreta,
That concludes our agenda. Have a good day.
is there any further business? Seeing none, we are adjourned.